Chapter 2301. In the shadows, someone couldn't help but laugh. Who would have imagined that Kai, who's infatuated with the sword Dao and doesn't care about the affairs of the world, would instead take the initiative to stand out? However, it all depends on whether that kid is able to defeat Kai. Alas, if it's really impossible, then I'll have to disregard my old face and make that kid stay. At the same time, Xian couldn't help but say, "Little Ant, isn't this bullying?" Xian frowned. In a battle of the sword Dao, winning or losing isn't scary. You haven't become an emperor, so you don't understand. Those words nearly choked Xian to death. Of course, he had not become a martial emperor yet, but what did that have to do with whether he knew how to bully others? Clang! A sword appeared in Xian's hand. At the same time, her snow-white hair suddenly straightened like a waterfall that fluttered in the sky, and it was suffused with a bloodthirsty sword insight that caused one's heart to palpitate. Her sword was 3 feet and 2 fin long and 2 fingers wide. The blade was thick and blunt, and the blade was branded with dark red mottled bloodstains, like blood-stained plum blossoms. As soon as it appeared, merely the aura suffused on the sword tore open numerous damaged marks in space, and it emanated strands of sharp and ear-piercing explosions. A very powerful sword. This was the understanding of everyone present, especially when it was held in Xian's slender and fair palm. The sword seemed as if it had come to life, and it flickered with sword chi as if it was unable to restrain itself from drinking the blood of its enemies. Emperor Sword drinks blood. Xian's pupils constricted. He'd never imagined that Xian would actually take the initiative to utilize the imperial armament that she was famous for before the battle had even begun. This monarch sword was stained with fresh blood and could be said to be a peerless, murderous weapon. The dark, red, mottled bloodstains on the body of the sword represented the sword sovereigns that had died under this sword. As for those below the emperor realm, they were not qualified to be imprinted on the blood drinker imperial sword. Even Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart when he saw such a ferocious weapon that had drunk all the blood of the emperor, and the sense of danger that Xian brought him became stronger and stronger. "Where's your sword?" Xian asked. "I don't have a natal emperor weapon," Lin Sun said calmly. "Of course, if you want to compete with treasures, that's fine too." A few of the Xian family's elders laughed in secret. When facing a 6th-level sword emperor that possessed boundless slaughter like Xian, he was either ignorant and fearless, or he possessed sufficient resources to speak such words. In their view, Lin Sun was ignorant and fearless. Kaney's performance is also not bad. She is slightly stronger than the people we arranged. Someone commented, "This is a rare sword genius of our Xian family. He was born with an exquisite sword heart. How can an ordinary person compare to him?" But a 6th-level emperor against a 1st-level emperor, it doesn't sound good. Xian frowned and put away the blood drinker imperial sword as the elders of the Xian family discussed in secret. She looked straight at Lin Sun and said, "I won't bully you. Since you don't have a sword in your hand, I'll suppress you with my own swordsmanship." When she finished speaking, she suddenly turned into a colorful stripe, like an aurora cutting through the void, and shot towards Lin Sun with an incomparably cold momentum. There was only a distance of 3,000 meters between her and Lin Sun. But at this moment, as soon as she moved, the 3,000 meters of void was torn apart by a sharp light like a piece of cloth. It went straight to Lin Sun in less than a moment. But what was faster than her was the sword that came out from his fingertip. It was too fast. If it were someone else, they would not have time to react and would be torn apart by this sword that was as swift as lightning and as fast as teleportation. This chick is powerful. Big Yellow couldn't help but be moved. This sword had already cast all the essence, chi, and spirit of the whole body in it, so the aura it released was extremely terrifying. In the face of this sword, Lin Sun's expression was unmoved. He pressed his finger. Swish! The same sword chi whizzed out, like a cold arc drawn by the tip of a brush, and accurately stabbed the point of sword light that was coming at him, as if it had foreseen the future. Bang! The collision between them erupted with an explosion that tore at one's eardrums. Even the eye could see a strand of terrifying, destructive airflow rumbling as it dispersed into the surroundings between the two strands of sword chi. Everywhere it passed, space was crushed into pieces, and a horrifying vacuum was formed. This extremely fierce and chilling sword was really blocked by Lin Sun. Yes, this is the sword-drawing Tao of sky-punishing swordsman. Xian Caney's beautiful eyes narrowed, while her voice carried a trace of surprise and even a trace of excitement. In the next moment, the two of them separated tacitly and collided with each other tacitly, launching a soul-stirring and intense battle. This was a duel between two Emperor Realm swordsmen. The strange thing was that after the two of them exchanged blows, although their moves were peerlessly swift and fierce to the extreme, they actually didn't collide again. However, the killing intent within caused everyone's hearts to palpitate with fear. Swish from time to time, the fierce whistling sound of sword chi could be heard in the air, and it embellished the silent and strange atmosphere as if it was reminding everyone how terrifying this battle was. It was precisely these strands of sword chi that shot out from time to time that caused the sound of their battle to seem even more terrifying. It was soundless and had never collided. Perhaps the moment the two clashed would be the moment the outcome of the battle was decided. Whether it was Xie Ji, Big Yellow, Xian Jiuyin, or the old man of the Xian clan who was secretly watching all this, all of them held their breath and stared at the battle in fear of missing any detail. Xian Caney's cultivation base was at the 6th level of the Emperor Realm. Her sword Dao was filled with a terrifying and bloodthirsty killing intent. It was a pure Dao of slaughter that was obviously honed through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. She seemed to have become a peerless and fierce sword. Every move she made was fierce and swift, and her sword chi flew and tore the sky apart. It was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble. Even Big Yellow had to admit that Xian Caney was not simple. She was not an ordinary 6th-level Emperor Realm cultivator. But what surprised Big Yellow the most was Lin Sun. His entire body glowed brilliantly, while every single pore on his body surged with strands of sharp sword chi. He and Xian Caney possessed two completely different sword Daos, and their imposing auras were completely different as well. His sword move was extremely simple. He drew his sword, slashed, and repeated it over and over again. However, it faintly carried the terrifying might of 10,000 swords converging into one and destroying all techniques with a single strike. On the other hand, Bai Hong's sword Dao was slaughter, fierce and pure slaughter. The current battle between the two of them didn't seem to be a scene that shook the heavens and the earth, yet it possessed a force that caused one's heart to palpitate. It was a battle between two supreme sword Daos that were profound to the extreme and possessed extraordinary attainments, and it contained great terror and danger. At the same time, this battle alarmed the old men of the Xian clan, and strands of consciousness swept over and communicated soundlessly with each other. 3 inches of eternal silence, 6 inches of eternal death, 9 inches of eternal destruction. This kid really is the inheritor of Sword Master Skysplitter that vanished during the primeval times. Emperor Ju's Dao really is heaven-defying. He's a young man, yet he's actually able to fight equally with Caney. No wonder such a figure was able to become the inheritor of Mount Heart. Everyone, don't forget that this kid is wanted by Emperor Shi Tiandi. So what if he's Emperor Shi Tiandi? If our Xian clan really goes all out, why would we be afraid of an old fellow from the Permitha Luo clan? Why should our Xian clan shed all pretenses with Emperor Shi Tiandi for an outsider? This kid possesses the resources of an eternal exalt, and he's even the inheritor of Mount Heart. Could it be that this isn't enough for us to attach importance to? Enough. There's no point in arguing. Let's see if he's able to pass this test before us. Before that, all arguments are meaningless. Instantly, all the communication vanished, and it became silent as everyone continued to watch the battle. Not bad, not bad. You've fully comprehended the essence of the Sword Tao. Such a Sword Tao has truly broadened my horizons. However, such strength isn't enough to defeat me. Where's the Sword Control Tao and the Heart Sword Tao? Why aren't you executing them? In the battle, Xian Caney licked her rosy lips. In addition to the bloodthirsty, murderous aura, there was also a kind of surprise on her plain and beautiful face. The confrontation between the two had reached the most intense level. Although they hadn't really collided, the danger and killing intent between their moves made everyone's heart tighten involuntarily. But according to Xian Caney's words, she was actually using this battle to spy on the mystery of Lin Sun's Sword Tao. With my current strength, I haven't begun to practice the Sword Control Tao and the Heart Sword Tao, said Lin Sun. The inheritance of Sword Master Sky Punisher was divided into 3 parts, namely the Sword Tao, the Sword Control Tao, and the Heart Sword Tao. Indeed, Lin Sun hadn't begun to practice the last 2 kinds of Sword Tao. Xian Caney frowned as if she was puzzled. The meaning of Lin Sun's words was very simple. He had the strength to practice, but he hadn't started. You're really not a pure sword practitioner. How can you be so half-hearted in Sword Tao? She frowned with disappointment in her eyes. If so, you can only stop here. Swish! She slashed out a peerless sword chi that was filled with killing intent, and it shot through the heavens and the earth, enveloped the surroundings, and was boundlessly dazzling. That's not necessarily the case. As he spoke, Lin Sun's aura suddenly changed. Countless dense and dazzling Taishian sword chi sprayed out from the acupoints all over his body, and it covered the void in the sky. The surging sword light was simply omnipresent and omnipresent. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, Xian Caney's sword strike was obliterated and dissipated by the sword formations. Taishian's sword scripture. Xian Caney wasn't shocked but delighted, and her eyes rippled with extraordinary splendor. I never expected that you've actually mastered the inheritance of Taishian, Sword Emperor. This was too unbelievable. At the beginning of the primitive times, Taishian Sword Emperor was regarded as the #1 Sword Emperor in the world, and Sky Punisher Sword Emperor was regarded as the #1 Sword Master in the Dark World. The 2 unparalleled Sword Emperors had originally arranged to have a battle that would attract the attention of all the people in the world, but the sudden arrival of the First Tribulation of Oblivion caused this battle to be unable to take place. Who could have imagined that the inheritance of these 2 unparalleled Sword Emperors had actually appeared in the possession of a single person? To Xian Caney, who was infatuated with the cultivation of Sword Tao, this was simply like discovering a supreme treasure, and her heart was filled with excitement. At the same time, the old men of the Xian clan that were paying attention to all of this from the shadows were stunned as well. Taishian Sword Emperor. That was a peerless and dazzling Sword Emperor during the primitive times. Chapter 2302. Even though she was shocked that Lin Sun had grasped the inheritance of Taishian Sword Emperor, Xian Caney's actions weren't slow at all. Star annihilation. Collapse in all directions. She waved her fair and translucent palm and fingers, and a terrifying and monstrous sword intent exploded out, causing the void to collapse as it instantly smashed down. Rumble. The heavens and the earth were in disorder, and the sun and moon lost their light. In the void, the blazing sword chi that was vast like an ocean transformed into various sword formations that were tight like cages and possessed the might to blot out the sky and cover the sun. No matter how Xian Caney attacked, she was obliterated and defeated by the sword formations that covered the heavens and the earth. It was even to the extent that it became difficult for her to approach Lin Sun. Earlier, when Lin Sun executed the drawing sword Tao, it just happened to be like a myriad of swords converging into one. Now that he executed the Taishian sword scripture, it could be said to be a myriad of sword techniques. 2 completely different supreme sword Taos were now easily executed by him. And even though the might they displayed was completely different, they could both be said to be sword Taos that could shock the ages. This caused the old men of the Xian clan in the dark to be extremely shocked. On the other hand, Lin Sun had also benefited a lot from fighting with a peerless sword emperor like Xian Caney. Even though he'd experienced numerous slaughters after stepping into the Judy realm, strictly speaking, he hadn't encountered a formidable opponent that he could truly fight head-on. The most precious and difficult thing was that the battle with Xian Caney was completely relying on his own combat strength. This kind of battle and tempering was undoubtedly too rare for Lin Sun now. It was as if a peerless sword had finally found a furnace that could temper it thousands of times. In this kind of battle, Lin Sun fought to his heart's content, and he completely let go of all his cultivation. For a time, the vast sword Qi covered the entire world. Xian Caney was moved, and her beautiful eyes glowed. She noticed the changes in Lin Sun's state of mind and fighting spirit, and she was extremely shocked in her heart. A young man who had just stepped into the Judy realm was actually able to compete with her in Sword Dao. It was too rare. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Xian Caney's aura changed again. If it was said that she was excited to see a prey before her, then it was like she'd found a rare treasure that she could figure out. But at this moment, she truly regarded Lin Sun as a formidable opponent. An opponent that was sufficient for her to go all out. Boom! Her multicolored clothes fluttered, her snow-white hair fluttered, and the surging sword Qi around her transformed into a horrifying scene of mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and a surging aura of blood and slaughter spread out. She was only one person, but she was like the supreme, sword venerable who suppressed the gods. In the dark, someone was stunned. Has little sister gone mad? Is she going to risk her life like this? Those old men of the Xian clan were shocked. During these 3,000 years, Xian Caney had sat alone in the starry sky, slashing stars, striking flowing lights, and stabbing Zhou Su. She'd long since attained an unprecedented state in her sword Dao. Everyone in the Xian clan firmly believed that when Xian Caney attained the sword ancestor realm, her sword Dao would definitely suppress the heavens and reign supreme in the future on the ancient path of the starry sky. She would reveal a supreme might that was comparable to the primeval Taishian sword emperor. Yet now, for the sake of dealing with a young man who'd just stepped foot into the Ju Ing emperor realm, she'd actually gone all out. This undoubtedly proved that Lin Daoyuan wasn't simple at all. When they thought up to here, the hearts of some old men of the Xian clan were slightly shaken. Is it really good to refuse a young man like this as a guest merely because she's unwilling to shed all pretenses with Heavenly Emperor? Sure. The next sword strike is a supreme sword strike that I've comprehended after expending painstaking effort to observe 1,163 ancient sword Dao inheritances and experiencing 3,000 years of tempering. Xian Caney spoke while a peerlessly sharp light surged out from her body and threw the world into disorder, and she was like an overlord of the sword Dao that resided in the world. As she spoke, a strand of sword Qi floated up into appearance in her palm. It was clean and simple like a pool of autumn water, yet it reflected all the phenomena in the world. Amazing! Goldie's pupils constricted. An existence like him had seen countless extraordinary existences, yet Xian Caney caused him to be dazed, and he actually felt as if he'd seen the graceful bearing of a peerless ancestor of the sword that was slowly rising. Xia Ji frowned and seemed to be slightly unable to sit still, yet she was stopped by Goldie. Let that kid block this sword strike. No matter if he succeeds or fails, it's a great fortune that can only be chanced upon by luck. As for Xian Jiuyin, he'd been unable to clearly see everything that was occurring on the battlefield since a long time ago. It couldn't be helped. His cultivation was truly slightly insufficient. Please. At this moment, Lin Sun took a deep breath as well. His black eyes were bright while the spirit, energy, and spirit in his entire body were unprecedentedly condensed, and his body was like a furnace. Watch carefully. Amidst her casual voice, Xian Caney slashed out with this sword strike. This was the most murderous sword strike that she'd tempered throughout her entire lifetime, and it was also the strongest strike she could control at this moment. Amongst those of the same generation, there were practically only a few that could force her to execute this strike. When facing this sword strike that gathered the intent of slaughter and blood, Lin Sun pressed his hands together, causing everything in the entire sky to seem as if it was sucked out and collapsed inch by inch, and then an ethereal strand of sword chi surged out from the collapse. Gone without return. Unlike in the past, the might have gone without return that Lin Sun executed at this moment had risen explosively by more than 100 times. As soon as it appeared, it disrupted the phenomena in the sky and mixed up yin and yang, causing the heavens and the earth to fall into an atmosphere of destruction that caused despair and helplessness. All those years ago, Combat Emperor Wu Yang had once said that she'd fought throughout her entire lifetime and killed countless people. Yet she only knew a single sword move, and it was called Gone Without Return. This was a type of resolute sword intent, an imposing aura that didn't worry about success or failure, was fearless of life and death, and had no worries. In the past, Lin Sun had only comprehended the form of this sword move. Now he'd finally executed the intent of this sword move. He'd forgotten all forms. He was the proudest in the world. Wham! Xian Caney's sword suddenly shook violently like a restless beast that had received a lethal summon, and it actually intended to struggle free from her control. Xian Caney's pupils constricted when she saw this, and she exerted her entire strength to suddenly suppress this force that struggled free. Bang! Lin Sun's sword had already slashed over. At that instant, everyone felt suffocated when they sensed the nirvana intent contained within this sword intent, and they revealed a wisp of disbelief. On the other hand, a wisp of shock couldn't help but appear on Xian Caney's face. She suddenly noticed that she was already unable to dodge, and unless she stopped suppressing this sword strike, otherwise she would definitely suffer an injury from Lin Sun's sword strike. But as a sword emperor that was infatuated with the sword, how could she watch helplessly as her sword intent left her grasp? That would be equivalent to abandoning her sword heart and sword Tao. Even if she was able to survive, her Tao heart would definitely be covered in a shadow that couldn't be eliminated, and that was something that Xian Caney was absolutely unwilling to see happen. So she didn't shrink back or hesitate in the slightest, and she collided with Lin Sun's sword strike. Rumble. It was like two suns had collided in this expanse of the heavens and the earth, and it erupted with a boundlessly terrifying torrent of the sword Tao. It tore through space, charged through the surroundings, and swept towards the surroundings. The surging sword chi caused the nearby mountains and rivers to be flattened, the rocks and plants in the surroundings to be completely transformed into powder and vaporized, and an extremely enormous ravine was blasted open on the ground. On the other hand, the layer of clouds in the sky collapsed while the group of stars shook. At this instant, all the living beings in this secret realm were alarmed, and their hearts trembled as they looked around in shock. At this instant, Xia, Ji, Goldie, and the old men of the Xian family in the dark couldn't see anything. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, and they couldn't see through the subtle profundities within it at all. It wasn't that their cultivation wasn't high enough, but the seemingly simple sword strike of this level of sword Tao contained the will, spirit, and temperament of the two of them. The profundities within it couldn't be seen by outsiders. When the smoke and dust dispersed, the picturesque landscape seemed to have been violently torn apart by a giant hand, and it had long been changed beyond recognition. Desolation covered the landscape, and it was a ghastly sight. At the center of the battlefield, Lin Sun stood in the void. There was a sword wound on his body, and fresh blood dripped from it, dyeing his clothes red. His face was so pale that it was almost translucent. Thousands of feet away from him, Xian Caney was completely unharmed, but her eyes were a little unfocused. After staring blankly for a while, she sighed with emotion. "You won't be able to return. You've actually completely grasped the profundities of Battle Emperor Wu Yang's sword strike." At the end of her words, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, but it disappeared very quickly. "Senior, thank you for letting me win." Lin Sun took a deep breath and cupped his hands in front of his chest. He was in awe of Xian Caney's attainments in sword Tao. "I didn't let you win." Xian Caney shook her head and said, "From now on, you're a distinguished guest of the Xian family. Whoever stops you will be against me." Xian Caney. Swish! She turned around and left. Her white hair was like snow, and her colorful clothes fluttered in the wind. Before you leave, if you want to learn from each other, you can find me at Stargazing Valley. Her voice was still echoing, but she had already disappeared. Big Yellow said with emotion, "This girl's temperament and strength are the best in the world. If you hadn't stepped into Ju-ing Emperor Realm, I'm afraid you wouldn't be her opponent." Big Yellow had witnessed everything, and also witnessed Xian Caney's unparalleled talent in Sword Dao. He knew clearly that if Lin Sun really fought with his life on the line, he wouldn't be her opponent if he didn't use some special means. "Lin Sun, are you seriously injured?" She obviously didn't care about anything else. She only cared about whether Lin Sun was seriously injured or not. Lin Sun shook his head with a smile. "I'm fine. Speaking of which, I've learned a lot from this battle." Experiencing this battle caused an impulse that couldn't be restrained to surge into his heart, and it was to completely fuse all the sword Daos he'd grasped and transform them into a sword Dao that truly belonged to him. Similarly, if he wanted to perfect the Great Way Furnace scripture to the level of Emperor Sutra, he must thoroughly integrate all the inheritances he had obtained. Only in this way could the Great Way Furnace scripture truly become his own Emperor Sutra. "Brother Lin, you're not a human at all." At this time, Xian Juin, who had fallen into a state of shock, finally came to his senses. He looked at Lin Sun as if he was looking at a living monster. No one knew better than him how terrible a female sword emperor his aunt, Xian Caney, was. In Xian family, there might be many old monsters who were more powerful than Xian Caney, but in terms of potential and foundation, Xian Caney would surpass these old monsters sooner or later. It was no exaggeration to say that Xian Caney was equivalent to a sword emperor with a bright future in Xian family. Sooner or later, she would dominate the world. Chapter 2303. In the dark, the elders of the Xian family were all silent. "Caney has already approved of this child. Do we still?" Someone asked after a while. "If we let this child be a guest, and Emperor Shi finds out, there will definitely be a storm. Our Xian family is not afraid of falling out with Emperor Shi, but is it worth it to do this for an outsider?" These elders discussed. No matter which ancient clan it was, when they encountered a troublesome matter, the first thing they would consider was the clan's interests. If he is not worth us doing this, then who else in this starry sky is worth our Xian family doing this? Suddenly, a muddy and low voice sounded, suppressing all the other voices. "Now, let me ask you again, what is the identity of this Lin Sun?" This sentence made all the elders of the Xian family silent. Thinking about it carefully, they could not help but feel frightened. Lin Sun's identity was too not simple. He was the successor of Mount Fengxuan, the successor of Supreme Mystery Sword Emperor, Sky Punishing Sword Venerable, and Battle Emperor Wu Yang, the first young man to step on the Emperor's path in the last 100,000 years, the only person to obtain the fortune of an immortal sovereign since ancient times. So many halos gathered on a young man. This in itself was very unbelievable. That muddy voice sounded again. "Don't forget, Xian Kong is his senior brother, and how Xian Kong died. Have you all forgotten?" Xian Kong. Those elders of the Xian family became even more silent. From now on, whoever dares to resist and reject this child will be the sinner of our Xian family. That muddy voice disappeared, but this final decision made the elders of the Xian family unable to calm down. They knew that from today onwards, for this Lin Daoyuan, their Xian family would rather shed all pretense of cordiality with Emperor Shi. Divine Profound Ridge. Under Xian Juin's lead, Lin Sun and the others finally arrived at the core ancestral land that belonged to the Xian family. The ancient mountain was steaming with chaotic qi, and the buildings on it were row upon row. Along the way, old trees could be seen everywhere. Divine medicines were in clusters. Divine birds and auspicious beasts could be seen everywhere. Even some of the maids and guards that they saw along the way, all of them had extremely shocking attainments in cultivation. As far as the eye could see, Everything on the mysterious God Ridge seemed to be silently telling the world what the ancient Emperor clan's foundation was. Even Big Yellow clicked his tongue in admiration and said, "If I cultivated here since I was born and breathed chaotic energy all day and night to cultivate supreme inheritances, then even my food and drink would be top-rate divine medicines and precious treasures in the world. Would I have to worry about not being able to accomplish anything in the path of the Grand Tao? The descendants of the Xian family are innately superior to most of their peers." Xian Jiuyin chuckled and said, "This is all thanks to the grace of our ancestors. Everyone says that you, Xian Jiuyin, are so amazing. Isn't it because you're a descendant of the Xian family? I've always wanted to say that they're right. Our Xian family has always been amazing." "Show off." Big Yellow spat on the ground. The cultivation of the Great Tao is all about cultivation resources. If one doesn't have a heart that upholds the Tao, one won't be able to go far. Xian Jiuyin chuckled and said, "Clearly, I'm not such a person. In fact, the reason my Xian family is able to stand towering until now is because the clan can't tolerate the existence of trash. If the younger generation wants to rise and grow, then they'll even have to experience even more brutal tempering. If all of them were to sit idly by and rely on the grace of their ancestors, then the Xian family would have been finished since a long time ago." Lin Sun rather approved of these words. If any ancient power wanted to exist for eternity, then it would surely spend a great deal of effort to foster the next generation of young people. Only in this way would it be able to pass down the torch and continue existing without end. Were there any domineering and arrogant profligate disciples from rich families? Yes, but these profligate disciples similarly possessed strong cultivations, and their domineering and arrogant actions were none other than related to their disposition. As they chatted, they'd already arrived before an ancient building that stood towering on the side of a cliff. Auspicious clouds converged here while chaos suffused the surroundings, and it revealed a divine and solemn aura. The patriarch of the Xian family, Xian Shanshan, was waiting before the entrance of the ancient building since a long time ago. His tall and mighty figure stood there casually, yet he emanated a domineering aura that assaulted the face. He was like a sovereign that possessed the aura to swallow the world and control the world. This was Xian Shanshan, the person that was regarded as the most ferocious in the Emperor realm on the ancient path of the starry sky. Emperor Dayuan, battle Emperor Shao. And this young lady, I've been waiting here for a long time. Please come in. When he saw Lin Sun's group arrive, Xian Shanshan laughed loudly as he moved forward to welcome them. "Greetings, senior." Lin Sun cupped his hands. Even though this was the first time he'd met Xian Shanshan, he'd already committed Xian Shanshan's name to memory. This person was the only person that Lin Sun knew who'd entered the heaven-accessing realm, and he was only a step away from opening the door to heaven. On the Kunlun Ruins ascension platform, Xian Shanshan's name had once hung high above the sky, and his name had been left behind through the ages. He was Xian Jiuyin's father, the patriarch of the Xian family, and he was even the renowned Profundity Emperor. "Ah, since you've stepped foot onto the path to the Emperor realm, then you're a member of my generation. There's no need to call yourself a junior. However, since you're friends with little Gio, there's no harm in calling me uncle." Xian Shanshan stepped forward and sized Lin Sun up. He patted Lin Sun's shoulder and said, "Not bad." As expected of the Lin Daoyuan whose name shakes the starry sky. As he spoke, he looked at Big Yellow and said with a smile, "Big Yellow, we haven't seen each other for so many years. Why don't you take human form?" Big Yellow said disdainfully, "I've never changed my name or surname. I'm who I am. Why do I need to conceal myself with a body?" "Good. Everything is empty and the great Tao is true." Xian Shanshan gave a thumbs up. As he spoke, he looked at Xia Ji and said, "I presume this young lady is the legendary figure that killed a group of astral beasts by herself in Nirvana Ishvara." Xia Ji, Lin Sun introduced. "Not bad. Not bad at all," Xian Shanshan said with a smile. Xian Shanshan smiled. There was a strange look in his eyes. He could sense a mysterious aura from Xia Ji's body, but he did not say anything. Come, let's talk in the hall. As Xian Shanshan spoke, he led Lin Sun and the others into the hall. After they took their seats, a group of attendants served tea, wine, and snacks, all of which were treasures rarely seen in the outside world. After exchanging greetings for a while, Xian Zhuyin left with Big Yellow and Xia Ji, leaving only Xian Shanshan and Lin Sun in the hall. Xian Shanshan looked at Lin Sun and said, "I've been entrusted by someone to invite you here. There's something that they want me to pass on to you." As he spoke, he took out a bronze box from his bosom. It was 3 feet long and was imprinted with complicated Taoist seals. He handed it to Lin Sun. Lin Sun held it in his hand and looked at it. A familiar feeling welled up in his heart. He blurted out, "Did Master Lu leave this?" Xian Shanshan nodded yes. Lin Sun became excited all of a sudden. "Where is he?" Xian Shanshan pointed at the bronze box and said, "This box is the clue." Lin Sun's gaze fell on the bronze box again. He saw that there were at least tens of thousands of seals on it. Moreover, so many seals were interlinked and interrelated. It could be said that a slight move in one part would affect the whole body. Even with Lin Sun's current attainments in spiritual tattoos, he still felt extremely strained. Xian Shanshan said, "Lu Boya only said that there's a treasure left by your mother in the box. As long as you can open this box within 100 years, you can go to find your mother. If you can't open it within 100 years, you must destroy this box." Lin Sun frowned. "Is this a test?" Xian Shanshan nodded, "And it's a very important test. In my opinion, there must be a reason why Lu Boya did this. It's impossible for him to deliberately make things difficult for you." Lin Sun looked at the mysterious bronze box in a daze and said, "I don't understand. Why did he set a time limit of 100 years? Could it be that if I can't open this box, something will happen?" Xian Shanshan shook his head. "This is not something I can speculate about. But in my opinion, you'd better try to open this box within 100 years. Lin Sun took a deep breath and nodded seriously. Suddenly, he realized the problem and said, "Senior, you also know Master Lu?" Xian Shanshan couldn't help laughing. "If not for Lu Boya, how could I have the chance to experience the glory of the 9 levels of Green Cloud Path?" After a pause, he continued, "This Master Lu is not a simple person. He comes from the other side of the starry sky and controls a mysterious power that doesn't belong to this world. When I met him, he was still a young man who couldn't become an emperor. No, he couldn't even enter the saint realm." Lin Sun asked curiously, "How did you know each other?" Xian Shanshan smiled and said, "The ancestor of the Xian family crossed the other side at the beginning of primitive times and hasn't returned for a long time. Lu Boya came to the Xian family with the sword of the ancestor. He said that he was being hunted and asked the Xian family to send him to a place." "Where?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. "The ultimate." Lin Sun suddenly realized that Master Lu must have done this to go to the ultimate ruins and meet his master, the master of the heart core. After all, his master was the only one who could scare away the master of Tongtian, Luo Tongtian. Perhaps in Master Lu's view, if he could get help from his master, he might be able to resolve the pursuit from the other side of the starry sky. The fact that Master Lu could hold the token of the ancestor of the Xian family undoubtedly proved that Master Lu and the ancestor of the Xian family had some kind of extraordinary relationship when they were on the other side of the starry sky. Otherwise, how could the ancestor of the Xian family risk offending the Luo family and give his sword to Master Lu? At this time, Lin Sun finally understood why Xian Shanshan had the opportunity to enter the heaven accessing place. At this time, Xian Shanshan couldn't help asking, "Nephew, may I ask you a question? Have you opened the door to the heaven accessing place?" Lin Sun nodded. There was nothing to hide. Xian Shanshan smiled bitterly and said, "Sure enough, that door can only be opened by someone with the bloodline of the Luo family. No, only someone with the complete talent of devouring abyss can open it." Chapter 2304. Senior, you also know about the Luo family and the devouring abyss? Lin Sun became more curious. He had seen many old monsters over the years, but he had never seen anyone talk about the Luo family and the devouring abyss. It seemed that the Xian family was not simple. We know very little about the opposite shore of the starry sky. We only know that the former Supreme Emperor Nameless and the current Supreme Emperor Sure are from the Luo family. Xian Shangshan said in a low voice, "Strictly speaking, the forbidden power of order covering the starry sky ancient path should be the thunder order from the opposite shore, controlled by the Luo family. As for exactly how great the resources of this clan are, even I don't know. However, nephew, you ought to have realized that the lightning order controlled by a clan is able to envelop the entire ancient path of stars and block the path to the other shore. From this, it's obvious how terrifying the resources of such a clan are." Lin Sun nodded. It was really incredible. When he thought that his mother, Luo Qingxuan, also came from such a mysterious clan on the opposite shore, he felt complicated. Who would dare to believe that the countless years of pursuit that his mother had suffered actually came from the clan behind her? Everything was for the heaven-accessing place, for the complete devouring abyss. As for the devouring abyss, there was a trace of reminiscence in Xian Shangshan's eyes. Lu Boya once casually said that such a talent was 1 in a million in the Luo family of the opposite shore, and it was extremely difficult to find one in thousands of years. The Luo family is bound to have a lot of clansmen, but only the direct descendants have the opportunity to awaken such a talent. Of course, it's just a chance. Speaking of this, Xian Shangshan looked at Lin Sun and said, "Now, you should understand how rare the devouring abyss talent is, right?" Lin Sun frowned and said in confusion, "But when I was young, when I was cultivating in the Xiao Empire in the lower world, many people seem to have heard of this talent." Xian Shangshan thought for a while and smiled. "Nephew, can't you guess the reason? This news must have been released by the enemies who were chasing after your mother to let people know about the devouring abyss innate skill. Moreover, so long as this sort of natural talent appears, it will surely be spread out at the first possible moment. In this way, those enemies will surely know at the first possible moment exactly who has awakened this natural talent. Perhaps they'll be able to follow the clues and capture your mother and Lu Boya. Otherwise, how could Xian Shangshan become the head of the Xian family?" Lin Sun was suddenly enlightened by Xian Shangshan's words, but he also realized a problem at the same time. Back then, wasn't the reason why the Lin family's massacre broke out because the news that he possessed the devouring abyss talent had spread? Both Yun Qing Bai and Ba Qi, who was disguised as a quasi-emperor, were merely pawns. The real threat to Luo Qingxuan and Master Lu was the taboo order force above Xiao Empire. Having figured it all out, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. How many dangers had his mother and Master Lu gone through in the past years? Since the Nirvana Luo family was so crazy about all this, did it mean that the heaven-accessing secret realm and the complete devouring abyss talent were extremely valuable? In the end, Lin Sun put away the bronze box and said, "Thank you for giving this to me. I will never forget your kindness." Xian Shangshan stood up and said, "My dear nephew, you've encountered some obstacles during your visit to the Xian family. I should be the one to apologize." Lin Sun hurriedly stood up and said with a smile, "How can I not understand what those seniors are thinking? They're just worried that I, Lin Daoyuan, will be targeted by Shi Tiandi when I come as a guest. This kind of worry is reasonable. No, I'm the one who invited you here. How can I let you suffer such grievances?" Xian Shangshan shook his head and said, "Well, I can make an exception and let you enter the mirror of Shanxian to cultivate for a period of time." As he said this, he winked at Lin Sun and said, "This is the foundation of the Xian family. Ordinary disciples of the family are only qualified to enter when they become emperors, not to mention outsiders. Of course, it must be beneficial for a peerless emperor like you." Lin Sun was stunned. How could there be such a good thing? "Let's go. I'll take you there." Xian Shangshan was about to lead Lin Sun out of the hall. "Senior, please wait a moment." As Lin Sun spoke, he took out the letter from Zhong Qiu and handed it over. "Zhong Qiu asked me to give this to you before I came here." Xian Shangshan was startled. He opened the letter and chuckled. "Zhong Qiu is such a proud person. I didn't expect him to remember the favor I owed him all those years ago. As for what kind of favor Lin Sun owed, Xian Shanshan didn't say, but he already understood that Lin Sun came to the Xian family with a request. He said, "Nephew, you might not know this, but after the 10,000 Dragons Immortal Gathering was held a few years ago, the path leading to the true dragon world was sealed, and it was completely cut off from the outside world. Rumor has it that something big happened during the 10,000 Dragons Immortal Gathering." Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. Back in the ancient Desolation Realm, Zhao Jingxian had gone to the world of True Dragon to participate in the gathering of dragons and immortals. However, according to Xian Shanshan, something unexpected had happened during the gathering of the bloodline of True Dragon. This made Lin Sun's heart tighten. "If you really want to go, it's not impossible," Xian Shanshan said. Xian Shanshan said, "However, it will take some effort. How about this? I'll bring you to the world within the mysterious God Mirror to cultivate first. When you come out, I guarantee that I'll settle this matter for you." Lin Sun took a deep breath and bowed seriously. "Thank you for your help." Xian Shanshan patted him on the shoulder with a smile and said, "In the future, the starry ancient path is destined to be dominated by influential figures like you. If you really want to thank me, help me take care of Xiaojiu if there's a chance in the future." Lin Sun nodded. "What? I haven't been to the mirror of Shanxian to cultivate." Outside the hall, Xian Jiuyin screamed in disbelief. "Father, I'm starting to doubt whether I'm your biological son or not." Slap. Xian Shanshan slapped the back of Xian Jiuyin's head and scolded him with a smile. "When you can break through the realm and become a great emperor, the door of the mirror of Shanxian will always be open for you." Xian Jiuyin curled his lips and said angrily, "You're goading me again. Can't you change the trick next time?" As he spoke, he quickly sent a voice transmission to Lin Sun. "Brother Lin, the mirror of Shanxian is divided into 36 levels. The higher you go, the greater the benefits you will obtain. This is a rare opportunity, so don't waste it. Since the ancient times, there have been many peerless and ruthless people in the Xian family. Most of them gained great benefits from the mirror of Shanxian." Lin Sun realized that this opportunity was obviously more precious than he had imagined. Xian Shanshan glanced at Xian Jiuyin. Obviously, he had guessed what Lin Sun had said, but he was happy to see it happen. If his son could become close friends with someone like Lin Sun, even if he had no future prospects, he could at least live a carefree life. "Can I come with you?" Big Yellow's eyes lit up. Obviously, he knew the benefits of entering the mirror of Shanxian. After all, it was a chaos treasure, the origin of the Xian family. The opportunity was too rare. "No!" Xian Shanshan refused flatly. Big Yellow was angered to the point of grinding his teeth, but he had no other choice. This was the Xian family. Even though he was arrogant, he wasn't arrogant to the point of acting atrociously in the Xian family. "Wait for me." Lin Sun looked at Xia Ji. Xia answered naturally, as if it was a matter of course to obey Lin's words. "Let's go." When he saw this, Xian Shanshan didn't delay any longer, and he swiftly vanished with Lin Sun. In merely an instant, an enormous mysterious door that was condensed from a chaotic rain of light appeared in Lin Sun's field of vision. When they arrived here, Xian Shanshan said, "Young friend, the world formed by the mirror of Shanxian is behind this door, and it's called the Mysterious World. Moreover, there are 36 levels within it, and they're completely formed by the chaotic source of the ancient path. No matter if it's comprehending the great Tao or tempering one's cultivation within it, you'll be able to obtain unexpected benefits. This time, I've helped you gain a month of time. Even though the time is short, but such an opportunity is unique in the entire world. Don't waste it." As he spoke, Xian Shanshan flicked his sleeve, and a green jade token floated up into appearance before he passed it to Lin Sun. "Take this token, and you'll be able to enter." "Thank you, Senior." Lin Sun immediately took action, and his figure instantly vanished within the vortex formed from chaos. Not long after he left, there was a wave of fluctuation in the sky, and then a silver-haired old man appeared. When he saw the surging vortex door gradually close, the silver-haired old man instantly became anxious. Patriarch, since the primeval times until now, our Xian clan's mysterious world has never allowed outsiders to enter. Even if it's within a clan, one has to pass through layer upon layer of screening and numerous tests in order to enter to cultivate. You, how could you? Xian Shanshan let out a long sigh and said, Alas, third uncle, if you'd arrived a step earlier, you would have been able to prevent all of this from happening. Now even I have no other choice. The silver-haired old man was angered to the point his nose became crooked. You're acting first and reporting later. No, I originally intended to act first and not report. Xian Shanshan spoke in all seriousness. Yet in the end, he couldn't help but laugh first, and he seemed to be extremely complacent. If old men like you knew, then even if this kid was able to enter in the end, it would definitely not be so smooth. There was no other choice, so I could only resort to this. If Lin Sun was here, you would definitely discover that Xian Shanshan, the most ferocious emperor in the starry skies, had a startling resemblance to Xian Zhouyin. Of course, the son took after the father. Whoosh, there was another wave of fluctuation in the sky, and one after another, the Xian clan elders appeared. When they found out that Lin Sun had entered the mysterious world, their faces all darkened, and some of them even flew into a rage. This was the core of the Xian clan, and it was the foundation of their Xian clan strength. Since ancient times, no outsider had ever entered this place. They could allow Lin Sun to come as a guest, but they had never allowed a guest to come to such an extent. Chapter 2305. The Xian family elders were furious. They pointed at Xian Shanshan with trembling fingers and scolded, Shanshan, you were very mischievous when you were young. Why are you still so mischievous now that you're the patriarch? Do you really think we can't do anything to you? This is outrageous. An old monster was so angry that he almost kicked Xian Shanshan. Xian Shanshan listened with a smile on his face. He remained calm and collected. When the Xian family elders were tired of scolding him, he said, Uncles and elders, using a chance to enter the mysterious world in exchange for the friendship of a future immortal sovereign. It's not a loss, right? The Xian family elders were stunned, their expressions uncertain. But you shouldn't have told us, someone said angrily. Xian Shanshan's face was full of shame. He bowed to the surroundings and said, Thank you, uncles. No matter what decision I make next time, I will listen to your teachings and pointers first. I promise I won't make such a huge mistake again. The Xian family elders looked at each other and felt a headache. Xian Shanshan was a pain in the neck. He could anger people to death, but they couldn't do anything to him. Forget it. We don't need to be angry about this. What's done is done, and it's already too late. An old man of virtue and prestige said, Moreover, it's not necessarily a bad thing for the patriarch to do this. That Lin Daoyuan is indeed worthy of our Xian clan's high regard. As the saying goes, a person doesn't recognize a cloud-soaring tree at the moment, and only when it reaches the clouds will the Tao begin to rise. Since we've already seen that this kid is a cloud-soaring tree, we shouldn't wait until this cloud-soaring tree reaches the clouds before befriending him. Xian Shanshan nodded fiercely. Uncle is right. It's easy to add flowers to a brocade, but it's hard to provide timely help. Someone frowned. I just want to ask, if our Xian family really has to go to war with Emperor Shurtiendi because of this kid, will you all agree? After a short silence, the Xian family elders tacitly agreed. They didn't have any friendship with Lin Sun, but they were purely considering the interests of the clan. They were extremely tempted by Lin Sun's friendship. Fang Xiyuan's successor, possessing the inheritance of Tai Xian, Wu Yang, and Sky Punisher, 3 legendary great emperors, a peak great emperor, and an immortal sovereign. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that so long as such a young man didn't suffer a mishap and perish, then he would sooner or later reign supreme in the world and reign supreme in the emperor realm. Now that there was such an opportunity to form a good relationship with Lin Sun, these old men of Xian family were extremely tempted. However, they were hesitant because they were afraid of Shurtiendi. Someone asked, Patriarch, I'm afraid we've already made Lin Daoyuan unhappy by sending people to obstruct him earlier. Under such circumstances, can our Xian clan still? Without waiting for him to finish, Xian Shanshan said solemnly, Second uncle, you've hit the nail on the head. Why should I send this child into the profound God world? Isn't it because I want to apologize on your behalf? The Xian clan's elders all nodded. After they calmed down, they realized that Xian Shanshan's actions were rather wise. Seeing that their expressions had softened, Xian Shanshan struck while the iron was hot. But this is not enough. Not enough. The Xian clan's elders were stunned. They almost couldn't believe their ears. Since the beginning of time, Lin Daoyuan was the first outsider to enter the profound God world. Such a sincere compensation was still not enough? Xian Shanshan patiently explained, Everyone, although the profound God world is our Xian clan's most precious land. With this child's potential, even if he doesn't use the profound God world to cultivate, how much of an impact do you think it will have on him? The Xian clan's elders all fell silent. The path of a peak-level great emperor who possessed many inheritances and was an immortal sovereign was indeed not something that a profound God world could influence. You said so much, so stop hiding it. Tell me, what other benefits do you want to give that kid? The elder of virtue and prestige glared at Xian Shanshan. How could he not understand this patriarch's character? After beating around the bush for so long, Xian Shanshan was merely laying the groundwork. Eldest uncle understands me well. Xian Shanshan raised his thumb and flattered the patriarch. Then, with a serious expression, he said, Uncles, all of you know that I owed the second successor of Fansu Mountains, Zhongxiu, a huge favor. As he spoke, he revealed Lin Sun's purpose for coming here. He even specifically pointed out that Lin Sun was heading to the True Dragon world to kill a woman who had connections with Emperor Shi Tiandi. Immediately, the Xian clan's elders were moved. Zhongxiu wants to start a war with Emperor Shi Tiandi? Someone was shocked. This was indeed earth-shattering news. The Xian clan's elders could not remain calm. That should be the case. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent Lin Sun to do this. Xian Shanshan's gaze deepened as he said, Therefore, whether it's to repay the favor or to kill Emperor Shi Tiandi, how can our Xian clan stand by and watch Lin Sun head to the True Dragon world? Yes, we must help. Someone couldn't help but nod. The other old monsters looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. They looked at Xian Shanshan and said, So that's what the patriarch is planning. Xian Shanshan also laughed. I'm doing this for our Xian clan. For the Xian clan. The Xian clan's elders nodded in satisfaction. We agree to this. Isn't it just going to the True Dragon world? Although the path there has been sealed, it's not a big deal. We can just use the mysterious God Mirror and open up a path to the True Dragon world. I have to say, all of you are wise. Xian Shanshan smiled as he flattered the Xian clan's elders. He heaved a long sigh of relief. He knew very well how stubborn these Xian clan's elders were. It wasn't easy to convince them this time. We have to think about this carefully. There are some old bastards in the True Dragon world. If we open up a path to their nest, they will definitely be unhappy. Yes, why don't we bring out our Xian clan's treasure? At least we can intimidate those arrogant and overbearing old dragons. We can't. We are only sending our young friend Lin Daoyuan to the True Dragon world. If we do that, we will be rejected by those old dragons. It will be disadvantageous to him. I feel that these Xian clan's elders were furious just a moment ago, yet they'd actually started to discuss how to help Lin Sun head to the True Dragon world now. Xian Shanshan grinned as he watched and didn't say anything. Everyone in the world knew that he, Profundity Emperor Xian Shanshan, was the most ferocious expert in the Emperor realm. But who knew that in the Xian clan, he'd always convinced others with his wisdom. The mysterious God world. Bang! Roiling, chaotic chi roiled and suffused the surroundings like numerous dragons that surged through the heavens and the earth, and the quintessence aura they emanated was thick and pure to the point it caused one's heart to tremble. Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp as soon as he arrived. This expanse of the heavens and the earth was actually completely formed from the quintessence of chaos. Being within, it was like returning to the mother of the great Tao and arriving at the natural chaos. His body and mind were bathed in the miraculous energy of the great Tao that was like a vast ocean. At this instant, the vital energy in Lin Sun's body was lively, as if it was cheering. It greedily and madly swallowed the omnipresent quintessence aura of chaos. His entire body seemed as if it was soaking in an immortal spring, causing him to float as if he was about to ascend to heaven. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun realized how miraculous the mysterious god world was. No wonder it was regarded as the origin of the ancient imperial clan, the Xian clan. Lin Sun forcefully resisted the urge to immediately sit down and cultivate, and he soared into the sky and flashed upwards. The mysterious god world was divided into 36 levels, and the higher one went, the greater the benefits one would obtain. Bang! As he charged upwards, Lin Sun instantly felt a wave of pressure descend upon him. This wasn't a pressure that came from the order of the heavens and the earth, and it was entirely produced by the energy of the quintessence of chaos. It was like a peerless medicinal pill that merely emitted an aura that possessed a terrifying, oppressive force. This was undoubtedly unbelievable, and it caused Lin Sun to look forward to it even more. His figure charged straight up, and in the blink of an eye, he'd arrived above the sky. After he arrived here, Lin Sun raised his eyes and saw that there was actually another layer of sky above him. Obviously, he'd already arrived at the second level of the mysterious god world. The energy of the quintessence of chaos here had obviously become denser, and it enveloped the sky like a large mist. Every breath he took was filled with extremely pure energy. This caused Lin Sun to not dare imagine what sort of miraculous place was above the 36 levels of heaven. Without hesitation, he once again charged forward. The third level of heaven, the fourth level of heaven, the fifth level of heaven. Lin Sun's figure did not slow down at all, and he soared all the way across the mysterious and extraordinary heaven and earth. During this process, the pressure he felt as he charged forward was getting stronger and stronger, and it was getting more and more turbulent. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that if someone below the Emperor realm were to enter the mysterious god world, it would be absolutely difficult to move an inch. It wasn't that this place was dangerous, but that the energy of the quintessence of chaos contained here was too majestic and powerful. This was like an ordinary person trying to swallow an Emperor realm treasure. Just the aura alone was enough to make one unable to approach it, let alone swallow it into one's body. No wonder in the Xian family, one has to go through layers upon layers of screening and tests, and only after breaking through to the Emperor realm are one qualified to enter the mysterious god world. This place really isn't a place that just anyone can come to. Along the way, Lin Sun was also filled with emotion and amazement. When he reached the 10th level of the mysterious god world, Lin Sun judged that without the power of the third level of the Emperor realm, one would not be able to move forward after reaching this place. As for Lin Sun, the pressure he had to bear began to increase. When he reached the 15th level of the mysterious god world, Lin Sun had no choice but to circulate his cultivation in order to counteract and dispel the terrifying pressure of the quintessence of chaos. When he reached the 20th level of the mysterious god world, under the pressure of the quintessence of chaos, Lin Sun had to circulate all the power in his body. The speed at which he was moving forward also began to slow down. However, this was still not his limit. Of course, if he really could not hold on any longer, Lin Sun would definitely not force himself. This was a blessed land for cultivation, not for fighting and killing. If he were to charge forward with injuries, even if he could reach a higher place, how would he be able to concentrate on cultivation? Chapter 23:06. Chaos filled the air, and the higher he went, the more terrifying the pressure became. Finally, Lin Sun stopped at the 27th level of heaven. In this world, the power of chaos turned into the shape of beasts and birds, flying between heaven and earth. There were also all kinds of divine flowers of the great path, flowing and diffusing like a waterfall of divine light rain. The auspicious rain was like a raging wave, submerging every inch of the void. This scene was too shocking. If word got out, the world would probably not believe that there was such a magical place in the world. Even the old monsters of the Emperor realm would go crazy for it. At this moment, Lin Sun felt extremely strenuous, but it was not enough to injure him. He let out a long breath and sat cross-legged in meditation. Boom! Suddenly, his body seemed to have turned into a giant abyss, spinning madly, producing a terrifying aura that could swallow the sky. The aura of chaos gathered in his body from all directions, producing a rumbling sound. Soon, his figure was submerged in the thick power of chaos. How to describe this feeling? It was like a desert that had been dry for a long time, was covered by a downpour, a long drought met with a good rain. Lin Sun felt so comfortable that he almost moaned. The cultivation of the Emperor realm required the support of an enormous amount of cultivation resources. For a peerless emperor like Lin Sun, because of his strong foundation, the cultivation resources he needed could be said to be terrifying. Most emperors would only need to refine an entire lake for one round of cultivation. But Lin Sun needed a vast ocean to cultivate once. Looking at the ancient path of the starry sky, although there were many famous mountains and blessed lands, only the top cultivation holy lands could satisfy Lin Sun's cultivation. For example, the place where the 6 Tao courts were located. This was also one of the reasons why it was so difficult for an Emperor realm practitioner to break through to higher realms. In the starry sky, the blessed lands that could satisfy the Emperor realm practitioner's cultivation were limited. Some clans and forces exhausted all their resources and could at most satisfy the cultivation needs of an Emperor realm practitioner. But in the mysterious world, it was completely different. The higher he went, the thicker and more vigorous the power of chaos. Just like now, Lin Sun could not help but sigh. If he continued to cultivate here, why would he worry about not being able to break through? Boom! The heavens and the earth rumbled as chaotic qi surged over. Lin Sun's body was like a bottomless abyss that swallowed the chaotic qi in a greedy and crazy manner. Within his body, the vast imperial life world was also operating, refining the origin energy of chaos at a speed visible to the naked eye. Along with the passage of time, his imperial life world grew even more solid and dazzling, brilliant, and boundlessly gorgeous. At the same time, Lin Sun was able to sense that the quintessence energy of chaos was branded with the purest laws of the Grand Tao, and it allowed him to practically directly comprehend and refine the laws of the Grand Tao and temper it into his own energy of the Grand Tao. This was the profound God world. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel shocked. There was indeed a reason why the Xian family could survive from the immemorial era until now. In addition, Lin Sun's 5 doppelgangers were trying their best to comprehend various Taoist scriptures. In the past, he had yet to become a martial emperor. Even if he could comprehend the power of the inheritance, it was limited to below the martial emperor realm. However, it was different now. He was already a peak great emperor and could comprehend and control the parts of the emperor realm recorded in the Tao scripture. Lin Sun's objective was very clear, and it was to comprehend and master the various inheritances he possessed. Thus, he would condense them into his own imperial scripture. This was his Tao. It contained all the Taos in the world, and it was derived from all techniques since ancient times. 10 days later, bang! A world-shaking rumble resounded. With Lin Sun at the center, the quintessence energy of chaos in the surroundings was instantly devoured completely, without leaving a single drop behind. On the other hand, Lin Sun seemed as if he'd broken a shackle, and his aura suddenly rose like an erupting volcano. The glow of the Tao interweaved with the rain, and it caused his figure to seem like a sun that tore through the sky and illuminated the world. It was so dazzling and resplendent. In his sea of consciousness, the Dharma idol that had transformed into a furnace rumbled, while various Tao markings and diagrams flew out from the furnace, and they were mysterious and profound. They were the Emperor Tao laws branded within his soul, and they seemed material and revealed a grand scene. In his body, the imperial life world was tumbling, constantly expanding and extending. If it was a small world before, it was like a big world at this moment. In the world, the sky, earth, latitude, sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, grass, and trees were all covered with a layer of brilliant Tao light, which was condensed by the purest Emperor Tao and evolved into all phenomena in the world. And Lin Sun's physique had also obtained a new kind of improvement. His body seemed to be formed by immortal jade, and it contained natural Tao. His bones were snow white, and his tendons and veins were brilliant, like pieces of divine gold liquid. As Lin Sun's qi ran, it produced a clanging sound. On the other hand, his internal organs and the acupoints throughout his body were filled with peerlessly copious vitality and the glow of the Tao. Even his strands of hair emanated a hazy glow of the Tao that was jet black and shiny, and ordinary divine weapons were unable to slash it apart. It was no exaggeration to say that a drop of Lin Sun's blood at this time could be regarded as a supreme precious medicine for ordinary practitioners, which had the power to bring the dead back to life. After a long time, Lin Sun's surging aura finally stabilized, and all the strange phenomena vanished along with it. At this moment, he was a second-level Emperor Realm existence, and he had attained the Formless Realm. There were 9 levels in the Emperor Realm, and each level was a natural chasm. The first level of the Emperor Realm, the unattached realm, didn't rigidly adhere to the Tao. You were bound by the Dharma, and when you reached the limit, you would have to be unattached. The second level of the Emperor Realm, the Formless Realm, took the meaning of the Great Way of Formless. When one attained this realm, his body and mind seemed to be in harmony with the Great Way of heaven and earth, and every move he made was accompanied by the Dharma. It was shapeless, so it was called formless. To put it simply, when one attained this realm, even if an Emperor Realm expert stood in a bustling street, those ordinary people and even ordinary practitioners would be utterly unable to detect his existence. This wasn't a secret method to conceal one's aura and whereabouts, but a kind of Great Way realm. The Great Way is shapeless, yet omnipresent, and I can also be shapeless, yet omnipresent. Of course, in the eyes of an Emperor Realm expert, this formless realm was merely a kind of realm, and it wasn't really formless. After all, the Great Way was shapeless, yet traceable, and could be comprehended and controlled by all beings in the world. It was the same for the second level of the Emperor Realm. For Lin Sun, attaining this realm made him keenly aware that his strength had undergone an earth-shaking transformation, which was far beyond the first level of the Emperor Realm. The most obvious change was that in the place of his mind, there was a kind of dazzling and translucent heart light. The heart light illuminated the body of an emperor, and all Taos were within reach. This was the manifestation of the state of mind after attaining the second level of the Emperor Realm. The body was shapeless, and the heart light gathered, allowing one to perceive the mysteries of all things. In other words, with the heart light, one could more easily perceive the rules of the Great Way and the power of order between heaven and earth. When one reached the third level of the Emperor Realm, he would encounter the Emperor's heart barrier, which was related to the heart light. After a long time, Lin Sun's eyes showed a trace of strangeness. It's only been 3 months since I became an Emperor Realm, and I've made another breakthrough. If those old monsters in the starry sky knew about it, I wonder what they would think. Yes, in less than 3 months, Lin Sun once again crossed the first level of the Emperor Realm and became a second level of the Emperor Realm. Such a shocking speed of advancement would make those old monsters who hadn't been able to take a step forward for thousands of years die of anger. It should be known that the 9 levels of the Emperor Realm were like a natural moat. To take a step forward was no different from ascending to the sky. Some old monsters of the first level of the Emperor Realm were even stuck at this level for thousands of years without being able to break through. Such a comparison showed how fast Lin Sun was breaking through the realms. Of course, the existence of the mysterious world played a crucial role. This world was the origin of the Xian family, and it was a unique treasure land in the world. Lin Sun was the first Emperor Realm figure to enter the mysterious world as an outsider, and he cultivated in the 27th level of the Emperor realm. 10 days of cultivation was equivalent to 100 years of hard work in the outside world. One day later, after Lin Sun completely stabilized his cultivation of the 2nd level of the Emperor realm, he stood up and went straight to a higher level. There was only 1 month left, and now there were less than 20 days left. Lin Sun didn't want to waste such a precious opportunity. The 27th level of the Emperor realm was certainly enough for his cultivation, but it wasn't the limit. 15 minutes later, Lin Sun reached the 29th level. 30 minutes later, Lin Sun reached the 33rd level and stopped there. The reason was simple. After reaching the 30th level, the pressure from the chaotic source suddenly became several times stronger. It was far stronger than before. Lin Sun used all his strength to reach the 33rd level. Not bad. The chaotic source here is almost solid, as thick as water. Even the laws of the Great Path are complete, pure, and complete. After a brief comprehension, Lin Sun revealed a satisfied smile. Without hesitation, he sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. Rumble. Like a tsunami, the chaos origin power instantly engulfed his figure. What? Not only did this kid break through to the 2nd level of the Emperor realm, he even rushed to the 33rd level of the mysterious world. In the outside world, when Xian Shanshan announced this news, the elders of the Xian family who had been paying attention to Lin Sun couldn't remain calm. The mysterious world was the ancestral ground of the Xian family. They naturally knew the secrets of the 36 levels of the mysterious world better than anyone else. Strictly speaking, those at the 1st level of the Emperor realm could only cultivate in the first 5 levels. Those at the 2nd level of the Emperor realm could cultivate in the first 10 levels. So on and so forth. With each level of the Emperor realm, one could cultivate in the higher 5 levels of the mysterious world. Above the 30th level, only those at the 7th level of the Emperor realm and above could cultivate. And the 33rd level that Lin Sun was at right now was a level that even an average 7th level of the Emperor realm could not enter. This was why the elders of the Xian family were in disbelief. It wasn't just them. When Xian Shanshan sensed this through the power of the mysterious God Mirror, he was speechless. He couldn't help but feel jealous. Chapter 2307. Xian Shanshan might not be the strongest among all the martial emperors in the universe, but he was definitely the most ferocious. He was also the clan leader of the Xian family and had a dazzling halo that everyone admired and admired. However, it was this ferocious martial emperor who had proven himself in the Archean era who was jealous of Lin Sun at that moment. One could imagine how shocked and surprised he was that Lin Sun was cultivating in the 33rd heaven of the Xinxian mountain. Therefore, when he saw the dumbfounded expressions of the Xian family elders, Xian Shanshan instantly laughed. They were all the same, so no one would laugh at the other. Does this mean that this lad's combat power can fight against a 7th level martial emperor? Someone's heart trembled. This conclusion was so shocking that no one would believe it if it was spread out. Back when he was still at the 1st level of Emperor Realm, he could already kill a 6th level Emperor Realm cultivator. He even gained the approval of a peerless sword emperor like Kai and I. Now that he is at the 2nd level of Emperor Realm, his combat power is naturally completely different from before. Someone sighed with emotion. The only thing I find strange is that in the primordial era, there were many great emperors who roamed the world. Their brilliance illuminated the river of time. However, those great emperors were not as monstrous as this kid. Then, many people looked at Xian Shanshan. In the entire Xian family, Xian Shanshan had another identity, and that was Great Emperor Zhu Yu. Otherwise, he would not have been able to stand out and wield the supreme power of the clan leader. Xian Shanshan's lips twitched, and he said angrily, "Do you really want me to admit that I am inferior to this lad in terms of Zhu Yu?" After a pause, he sighed helplessly. "All right, I admit that this lad is not an ordinary monster. Back then, I was not as strong." The Xian family elders had complicated expressions. The strongest person in the Xian family actually admitted that he was inferior to Lin Daoyuan when he was a 1st or 2nd level martial emperor. This fact was too much of a blow to them. However, it was precisely because of this that these old fellows from the Xian clan had a deeper understanding that it was indeed a good and wise decision to welcome Lin Sun. Let's go and continue to think about going to the true dragon world. At least we must settle this matter before this lad walks out of the Xian mountain. One of the antiques waved his hand and led the other elders of the Xian family to continue discussing the matter of opening a tunnel to the true dragon world. Xian Shangshan was amused. Obviously, the attitude of these old guys had completely changed. They had begun to accept and maintain the relationship with Lin Sun. This was, of course, a good thing. Time flew by. On the 33rd level of Shunshian Ridge, Lin Sun was immersed in cultivation. As for his 5 great Taoist bodies, they were respectively comprehending the Taishian Sword Sutra, No Return, Sky Destroyer Sword Sutra, Great Fuyao Sword Sutra, and Instant Tao Severing Sword. Among them, the Great Fuyao Sword Scripture was left behind by 15th Senior Brother Qing Ting, while the Instant Tao Severing Sword was left behind by Junhuan. As he had too many inheritances, it wouldn't be easy to integrate them. Lin Sun planned to categorize them first and then integrate the Sword Tao Imperial Scriptures he had obtained. As for inheritances like the Boundless Devouring Scripture, Golden Court Tao Scripture, Azure Lotus Abode, and so on and so forth, they could be divided into different categories to be fused together. The sages created the techniques. The emperors wrote the scriptures. The path of the emperor realm was actually the process of condensing one's cultivation into a complete Taoist scripture. Soon, there was only one day left before Lin Sun left the Shunshian Ridge. Whoosh, on this day, he woke up for meditation. His eyes were deep, and there seemed to be a big abyss surging in his pupils, reflecting the stars, the sun, the moon, and all the phenomena in the sky. Up to now, Lin Sun had completely consolidated the 2nd level of the Emperor realm and made great progress. He was not far from the consummation. If I have another month, I should be able to try to break through the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Lin Sun was a little unsatisfied, but he also knew that this time's cultivation in the Shunshian Ridge was about to end. It was already very rare for the Xian family to let him cultivate here for a month. When Lin Sun experienced the insights of the 5 great doppelgangers, countless wonderful insights suddenly surged into his heart like a tide. For a time, in his mind, there seemed to be 5 supreme Sword Tao wantonly deducing. The Taishian Sword Qi turned into 840 million, like the sand in the Ganges River, covering the boundless void, deducing infinite changes. No return, a sword cut through the 9 heavens and 10 earths, tearing apart the eternal night. Drawing Sword Tao, commanding Sword Tao, Heart Sword Tao suddenly appeared, flashing like flowing light, splitting the blue sky, splitting the road of life and death. There was a sword rising, crushing the sky, collapsing the 5 elements, wandering around the void, cutting down the endless stars. There was also a flash of sword Qi, like the epiphyllum. In an instant, showing endless wind, the mystery of the 5 complete supreme sword scriptures all emerged in Lin Sun's mind. At the same time, the 5 mysterious patterns emerged on the Dharma form of the furnace in his sea of consciousness. These 5 patterns represented the 5 complete supreme sword scriptures that Lin Sun had mastered at present, namely Taishian Sword Scripture, No Return, Sky-Destroying Sword Scripture, Fuyao Sword Scripture, and Momentary Tao-Cutting Sword. Lin Sun realized that when he integrated these 5 supreme sword scriptures, at least in terms of Sword Tao, all of them would belong to him and be imprinted in his Great Way Furnace Scripture. However, he was even more clearly aware that it was bound to not be easy to master these 5 completely different yet supreme sword scriptures and completely transform them into his own sword scriptures. After all, each scripture was the lifetime effort of a peerless sword emperor, which could be called the pinnacle of Sword Tao. How could it be integrated casually? However, Lin Sun was not in a hurry. He had been an emperor for less than half a year, and there was still a long way to go. Sooner or later, he would be able to integrate these 5 supreme sword scriptures into one. Next, Lin Sun let Greenwood Taoist body continue to meditate on these 5 supreme sword scriptures and try to integrate them. As for other Taoist bodies, they began to meditate on other Taoist scriptures. The next step is to choose a suitable life monarch weapon. Lin Sun had been struggling to choose an emperor weapon that could match his cultivation. Saber, spear, sword, halberd, axe hook, fork, or pagoda, Taoist seal, or Taoist bell. It seemed that none of them satisfied him the most. Lin Sun shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Now he was not sure of treasures. It was not too late to make a decision after thinking it through. At this moment, a jade tablet that he carried with him fluctuated. This meant that his cultivation in the profound God world would end today. A month's transformation is equivalent to 100 years' work in the outside world. Lin Sun stood up and looked at the world filled with chaotic qi. Suddenly, he thought that Buzhou Mountain, which was taken away by his senior brothers and sisters, was also a chaotic treasure. Based on this, would Mount Buzhou be able to develop such an incomparably miraculous place of cultivation like the Book of Divinity Treasures? As he was thinking, the jade token at Lin Sun's waist broke into pieces and turned into a teleportation force, which took him away and disappeared. Monk, as long as you recognize me as your elder brother, I promise you will have the opportunity to enter the mysterious world of Xian family, to cultivate. In a hall, Xian Jiuyin touched Ling Kezi's smooth forehead with a smile. It felt really smooth. Ling Kezi said with a silly smile, "Elder brother, this is what you said." Obviously, this monk was not stupid. He directly followed Xian Jiuyin and called him elder brother. Xian Jiuyin laughed and said, "Well, I recognize you as my good brother. In the future, when I have meat to eat, I will definitely give you soup to drink." Ling Kezi said seriously, "I am a monk. I don't want meat soup. I just want to cultivate in the mysterious world once. This is what you promised. You can't go back on your word." He deliberately emphasized the word elder brother. Xian Jiuyin said disdainfully, "It's not a big deal. When my father abdicates, I will be the head of Xian family. At that time, we will move into the mysterious world. Let's see who dares to complain." As he spoke, he looked at Jintian Xianyue and said with a smile, "Miss Xianyue, I know who you admire. So long as you recognize me as your elder brother, I guarantee that I will do everything in my power to help you pursue that fellow you admire." Jintian Xuanyue's clothes were whiter than snow, and her black hair was like a waterfall. She sat there like a celestial maiden that walked out from a painting, beautiful to the point of being untainted by the world. Hearing this, her fair and beautiful face blushed, and she reprimanded, "You should mind your own business. You still want to be the head of Xian family? Are you cursing your father's position that he won't be able to hold on for long? Haha, isn't it only right and proper for a son to inherit his father's position? Not to mention, he can't shamelessly hold on to the position of patriarch and refuse to let go, right? That would be too shameless. There are so many clansmen in the Xian family, so how could they possibly agree?" Xian Jin was beaming with joy as he spoke when the back of his head was slapped fiercely, and he staggered and almost fell. "You brat, who are you calling shameless? I'm not afraid to tell you that the position of patriarch will be yours when you defeat me." Xian Shanshan walked in from outside the hall, and Lin Sun and Xie Ji were with him. Xian Jiuyin grimaced in pain and rubbed the back of his head. He was about to argue with his father, but when he saw Lin Sun, he immediately cried out, "Why do I feel that this guy seems to have disappeared?" Ling Kezi and Jin Tian, Xianyuan nodded in unison. In their vision, Lin Sun was clearly there, but they couldn't sense him at all with their consciousness. Xian Shanshan said, "This is the second level of Emperor Realm. The body is one with heaven and earth, and the Great Way is invisible." Xian Juyin, Jintian Xianyue, and Ling Kezi immediately fell silent, and they felt like they were about to collapse from the shock. They hadn't become Emperor Realm, but Lin Sun had reached the second level of Emperor Realm, and he was even an ultimate Emperor Realm. Xian Shangshan said with a complicated expression, "Now you know how powerful he is. In the past, you were of the same generation, but now the gap between you is getting bigger and bigger. If you don't work hard, The gap will only get bigger in the future. Sooner or later, you will be left far behind, and you will no longer be able to walk shoulder to shoulder on the Great Way. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. Chapter 23:08. Friends should drink when they met. The wine was Xian family's 10,000-year-old floating dream. Lin Sun roasted a complete 5-colored peacock in the 5th level of the Emperor realm. Xian Join was amazed. Ling Kezi was frightened, and Jintian Xianyue was speechless when she saw Xie Ji. She became even more silent and absent-minded, which made Xian Join sigh again. Then they ate meat and drank wine. After a few cups of wine, they couldn't help feeling a little complacent. This floating dream was really too strong. When Xian Join tasted the burnt and oily 5-colored peacock meat, he was stunned for a moment and suddenly put his arm around Lin Sun's shoulder excitedly. "Big brother, please accept me as your younger brother for the sake of having a good meal in the future." Lin Sun said grumpily, "If so, you and I will become brothers who drink meat and drink wine." Xian Join was stunned. "It doesn't sound good, but it doesn't matter. As long as I can live well with you, I can even give up the position of the head of Xian family. Try it if you dare." Xian Shanshan looked over with a gloomy look, which made Xian Join feel embarrassed. He caught a glimpse of Ling Kezi chewing a large piece of roasted meat and slapped him. "Aren't you a monk who doesn't even drink meat soup? Why are you eating meat and drinking wine now?" Ling Kezi was hit on the back of his head, but he still chewed the roasted meat and said vaguely, "Who wants soup when there is meat?" Then he cut another peacock wing and was about to hold it in his hand, but it was snatched away by Xie Ji. "Little monk, this wing belongs to me." Ling Kezi felt helpless and cut another piece of thigh meat, but Xie Ji snatched it away. Ling Kezi was instantly anxious. Isn't this a little too overbearing? However, it was not over yet. A group of Xian clan old monsters rushed in from outside the great hall, shouting, "What are you doing here? I heard there is 5-colored peacock meat to eat." Someone pretended to be reserved. "This taste, it's amazing." Someone sniffed and showed an intoxicated expression. "Alas, I have never tasted 5-colored peacock meat after living for tens of thousands of years. My little friend, do you mind if we have a taste?" Someone had a cheeky smile on his face. As they shouted, the Xian family's old men were not at all courteous. They directly sat before the roasted meat, spread open their hands, and began to tear the roasted meat with their hands. At this moment, even Xian Shanshan could no longer remain calm. He said anxiously, "Uncles, please be more reserved. You are the face of our Xian family and have high positions and authority. How can you? Hey, don't fight over it. Leave this peacock neck for me." As he spoke, he no longer cared about his manners and joined in the fight for the roasted meat. When Lin Sun said that he would roast another 5-color peacock, they all smiled with satisfaction and became more reserved. "Little Nine, this bone is for you." "What? You still dislike it?" "This is a 5th-level Emperor Realm peacock's bone. Sucking in a mouthful of its bone marrow is no different from swallowing a peerless medicine. This brat has not advanced to martial emperor yet. Naturally, he does not understand the value of such a thing. Sigh, Little Nine, don't you have a heart? Look at the Dao Yuan Emperor, and then look at you. You've completely embarrassed our Xian clan." As the Xian family's old men ate and drank to their heart's content, they reprimanded Xian Join rudely. Lin Sun had become someone else's child. This almost made Xian Join cry. However, he could not refute them. Who asked him to be the grandson of these old men? "Xian Yu, why aren't you eating?" As Lin Sun roasted the meat, he suddenly noticed that Jintian Xianyu did not seem to be in a good mood. Jintian Xianyu immediately composed herself and said in a low voice, "Child, I would like to propose a toast to you." As she spoke, she picked up the wine pot and poured a cup for both Lin Sun and herself. "Sure." Lin Sun smiled and raised his cup. Jintian Xianyu's beautiful eyes stared at Lin Sun. She wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, she sighed in her heart and said, "Xianyu wishes child a safe return from the Zhenlong world." As she finished speaking, she raised her cup and drank it in one gulp. A blush appeared on her jade-like fair face. She seemed to be unable to handle the alcohol. However, She filled her cup again and looked at Xian Juyin. She said with a smile, "Child Xian, I propose a toast to you too. Thank you for your hospitality these days." Xian Juyin could not help but be worried. He said, "Miss Xianyu, fleeting like a dream is too strong. Drink it slowly." Jean Tian, Xianyue smiled and drained the cup in one gulp. Her picturesque face was covered in a fiery red glow, causing her to be extremely charming. "Ling Kezi, come, let's drink." She filled her cup again. Lin Sun looked at Jean Tian Xianyu in a daze. He sighed in his heart as he watched her drink almost wantonly. Some things, how could he not feel it? Not long after, Jean Tian Xianyu was drunk. She lay in front of the table. Her eyes were blurry and her red lips were slightly open. She muttered in a light voice, "Fleeting like a dream." What a good name. If it was only a dream, how good would it be? At least I would wake up one day. Two streams of tears flowed silently from her starry eyes. However, no one noticed because her head was lowered and she rested her head on her arm. "Since I see that you're safe, I have no worries in my heart. Since I see that you're safe, I have no more desires in my heart. Since I see that you're safe, I have no more intentions to stay." Amidst her muttering, Jean Tian Xianyu fell asleep. She seemed to be too sleepy, and she seemed to have really fallen drunk in a dreamy state. At dawn the next day, Lin Sun woke up from his hangover. He couldn't help but smile when he recalled the scenes of him drinking and reveling last night. He hadn't been so relaxed in a long time. He stood up and walked out of the room. Xia Ji was waiting there since a long time ago. She sat before the table and ate melon seeds. It was a snow spirit sunflower seed that was plump and crystalline and overflowed with spirit energy. The seeds were like diamonds, crispy, and had a refreshing and crisp texture. Big Yellow was snoring on the ground, and it was holding a bone in its mouth. Ling Kezi sat with his legs crossed and looked solemn. He turned the beads in his hands and murmured, "Everything that has been done is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a shadow, like dew and lightning. Next time, I must not eat too much." Lin Sun glanced around and was stunned when he didn't see Xian Jiuyin and Jean Tian Xianyu. As he was thinking, Xian Jiuyin came in from outside the hall and said with a smile, "Good morning, big brother." Lin Sun asked, "Where's Miss Xianyue?" Xian Jiuyin gave a long sigh and said, "She left." "Left? Where?" Lin Sun was stunned. "She went home. She said that she had been out for a long time. She left early in the morning for fear that her relatives and friends would worry about her." Xian Jiuyin glanced at Xia Ji not far away and whispered, "Big brother, didn't you see all the time?" "Miss Xianyue." Lin Sun waved his hand and said, "Don't say it. I understand." Xian Jiuyin said grumpily, "Since you understand, why do you make Miss Xianyue so sad?" Lin Sun's mood was also tumbling. Jean Tian Xianyu, the most dazzling pearl of the Jean Tian family, the first beauty in the White Emperor Star area, with immortal flesh and divine bones, unparalleled charm. Among the younger generation in the starry sky, Jean Tian Xianyu's talent, foundation, cultivation, and background were all the best in the world. No matter where she appeared, she would be surrounded by people like a moon surrounded by stars. But it was precisely such a peerless woman who had followed behind him since he was on the boat all those years ago, taking care of his daily needs and running about for him. Lin Sun found that he had actually been used to the existence of Jean Tian Xianyu over the years. She knew his nature and his preferences. Like the spring breeze and rain, she silently and painstakingly walked with him, weathering the wind and rain and tasting the ups and downs together. But all along, it seemed that she had never made any request to him. Thinking of this, Lin Sun felt guilty. Lin Sun had never let anyone down in his life. But today, because of Jean Tian Xianyu's departure, he felt unspeakable guilt and emptiness in his heart. He felt lost. "Big brother." Xian Jiuyin still wanted to say something, but Lin Sun waved his hand and said, "If you really treat me as a brother, don't mention it again." Then he turned and walked into the room. He wanted to have some quiet time. Xian Jiuyin scratched his head helplessly. He didn't understand why a peerless emperor would be so ignorant about love. From ancient times to the present, Which outstanding man on the ancient road of the starry sky didn't have 3 or 5 confidants? Not to mention confidants, he even had a lot of wives and concubines. Like his father, Xian Shangshan, who was incomparably romantic when he was young and had many lovers, so that Xian Jiuyin had 17 or 18 concubines, all of whom were as beautiful as fairies. Influenced by Lin Sun since childhood, Xian Jiuyin couldn't understand how Lin Sun could be so cold-hearted. He couldn't help looking at Xia Ji in the distance. Undoubtedly, even if her face was covered by the brim of the hat, even if she was sitting casually, her every move still gave people an indescribable, mysterious beauty. But Xian Jiuyin didn't think that Jin Tian Xian, you would be inferior to him. The beauties in the world were just like plum blossoms, orchids, bamboo, and chrysanthemums. Each had its own advantages. How could there be the most beautiful one? Therefore, Xian Jiuyin suspected that Lin Sun was being watched too strictly. Miss Xia Ji, do you think Miss Xianyue is a good person? He walked forward and sat opposite to Xia Ji, who was eating melon seeds. Xia Ji nodded. Xian Jiuyin said again, is Miss Xianyue beautiful? Of course. It's not appropriate for you to say another woman is beautiful. I just want to say that I can't let my elder brother be too cruel. I'm afraid that any man will not have the heart to hurt such a beautiful girl. Xia Ji was silent for a moment and said, as long as she is beautiful, no one will have the heart to hurt her. Xian Jiuyin said without hesitation, of course. It's the same for a man. Look at my big brother. He's the first person to become a martial emperor in 100,000 years. He's also very handsome and could be said to be a dragon or a phoenix. He's so handsome that girls can't wait to fall in love with him. As he said, he suddenly closed his mouth. Opposite him, Xia Ji lifted the brim of the hat that covered her face and stared at Xian Jiuyin with a pair of eyes as clear as stars. Am I beautiful? Chapter 2309. Xian Jiuyin was dumbfounded. It was the first time he saw a woman who could be so beautiful in this world. She was like a fairy who had fallen into the mortal world, transcending the world and making others feel ashamed of their inferiority. Being stared at by her eyes that were as clear as stars, Xian Jiuyin felt suffocated. She was clearly in front of him, but he felt that he could never get close to her. Looking at Xian Jiuyin, who was in a daze, Xia Ji frowned and covered her face with the brim of her hat again. Only then did Xian Jiuyin let out a long sigh of relief. When he looked at Xia Ji, who was sitting there quietly, shock and amazement still lingered in his eyes. No wonder Brother Lin cares about you so much, Xian Jiuyin sighed. Xia Ji's beauty could stir one's mind. It was hard to imagine that there could be such an otherworldly beauty in this world. It seems that I'm also beautiful. At the same time, Xia Ji also spoke as if she had been relieved of a heavy burden. Xian Jiuyin was stunned. Was there need to ask? You really don't know how beautiful you are? He asked seriously. Xia Ji nodded. Being beautiful can't be eaten. Xian Jiuyin was speechless. What a joke. How could such a beautiful person not know how beautiful she was? He was almost driven mad. After a long time, Xian Jiuyin took a deep breath and said, Miss Xia Ji, have you heard the phrase, bring disaster to a country? Xia Ji shook her head. Xian Jiuyin was speechless and said, you just have to remember that anyone who sees a beautiful person like you will definitely pursue you crazily. So, if it's not necessary, don't let others see your face in the future. Otherwise, there will definitely be a disaster that will bring disaster to a country and people. Xia Ji said, oh. Xian Jiuyin still wanted to say something, but Xian Shangshan and a group of Xian family elders had already walked into the hall. Today was the day Lin Sun and the others would go to the true dragon world. Above a starry sky, Xian Shangshan and Lin Sun stood side by side. Xia Ji, Goldie, Xian Jiuyin, and Ling Kezi stood beside them. In a place even further away, a group of Xian family elders were busy preparing to open a passageway to the true dragon world. The true dragon world has migrated from the starry sky ancient road since the primordial era. Over the countless years, although many descendants of the true dragon have come to the starry sky ancient road, strictly speaking, The true dragon world no longer belongs to the starry sky, ancient road. Xian Shanshan told Lin some information about the true dragon world. In the true dragon world, there were also countless living beings and countless races. The true dragon bloodline was the only race that ruled over it. The true dragon world had a passageway that led to the immortal phoenix nest, the black tortoise continent, and the white tiger god mountain. Similarly, it also had a passageway that led to the opposite shore. Be it the true dragon, the immortal phoenix, the black tortoise, or the white tiger, they were all Khanate spirit clans in the truest sense of the word. According to what Xian Shanshan said, a descendant of the true dragon possessed the ability to absolutely crush another in the same cultivation realm, and only human cultivators that stood at the absolute peak would be able to go against it. In the true dragon bloodline, it could be said that there were as many experts as there were clouds, and there were many martial emperors. Even if a dragon emperor did not embark on the absolute path of cultivation, the power of his bloodline was enough to suppress his peers in the emperor realm. After introducing the situation of the true dragon world, Xian Shanshan reminded Lin Sun, "You must be careful when you go to the true dragon world. The people of the true dragon bloodline, regardless of their age, are all extremely arrogant and protective of their own." Lin Sun nodded. He had two purposes in going to the true dragon world. One was to find Zhao Jingxian, and the other was to kill the purple-clothed woman, Yin Xing. "It's done. Patriarch, it's time for you to take action." A joyful voice came from afar. The elders of the Xian family joined hands and opened a whirlpool portal with their supreme power. Xian Shanshan nodded and handed a jade slip to Lin Sun. "Give this to the female senior in the heaven accessing place." Lin Sun was stunned. Then he realized that Xian Shanshan was referring to Shi. However, when he thought that Xian Shanshan, the patriarch of the Xian family who had lived for countless years, actually called Shi senior, Lin Sun could not help but feel a little strange. When he thought about it, it made sense. When Xian Shanshan entered the heaven accessing place, he was still a young man who had not yet become a saint. At that time, she was already standing guard in front of the gate of the heaven accessing place. The jade slip contained some clues about searching for the senior's memories and origins. If she sees it, she should be able to recall something, Xian Shanshan said. Lin Sun immediately realized the value of the jade slip and carefully put it away. Lin Sun immediately realized the value of this jade slip and carefully put it away. Xian Shanshan immediately realized the value of the jade slip and carefully put it away. Xian Shanshan took a deep breath. Suddenly, a monstrous and terrifying aura rushed out from his body, causing the starry sky to tremble and rumble like a tide. Lin Sun and the others retreated far away. "Rise!" Xian Shanshan shouted loudly. A boundless world surged out from behind him, and it was boundlessly vast like a desolate wasteland. In the center of the world, there was a full moon shining alone. This was Xian Shanshan's imperial life world. A terrifying and boundless world order emerged from it. The oppressive force made Lin Sun feel suffocated and his heart trembled. This old fellow has actually already stepped onto that path, just like Master. Big Yellow's eyes widened in shock. "Go!" Xian Shanshan flicked his sleeve, and a peerlessly dazzling full moon whistled out from within the vast world. As soon as it appeared in this expanse of the starry sky, its dazzling and clear radiance swept out, and it seemed as if it could illuminate the darkness of the ages. Anyone who saw this full moon would feel as if they were looking at the incarnation of the great Tao. It was filled with an indescribable supreme aura. It was too dazzling, and it emitted a myriad of divine radiances that covered the starry sky. This full moon was the Shunxian treasure mirror, the foundation of the Xian family. A thick pillar of light shot out from the Shunxian treasure mirror. It was like a silver river of stars, and it crashed into the vortex gate created by the old monsters of the Xian family. Rumble. A passageway was forcefully created within the vortex gate. It pierced through the void and extended to the depths. "Nephew, hurry up and take action," Xian Shanshan said in a low voice. "Let's go." Big Yellow led the way. His body emitted boundless light that enveloped Lin Sun and Xie Ji. They charged into the vortex gate. Xianjuyin shouted at the top of his lungs, "Brother, take care. If possible, remember to bring back some dragon meat to taste." Ling Kezi also waved his hand to send Lin Sun off. In a flash, Lin Sun and the others had disappeared into the depths of the passageway. After a quarter of an hour, Xian Shanshan put away the Shunxian treasure mirror. His face was pale, and he was panting. It was not an easy task to create a passageway that traversed the void and reached the Jinlong world. Fortunately, it went smoothly this time. Alas, I don't know when we can meet again after this farewell. Thinking of the peacock meat last night, I'm really reluctant. Xianjuyin let out a long sigh. Ling Kezi said, "Me too." Xian Shangshan glared at the two of them and said, "From today onwards, you two will cultivate in seclusion. You can only come out when you break through to the great emperor realm." Yes, that's how it should be. The old men of the Xian family laughed and gloated. Xianjuyin was too mischievous and unambitious. He had to be polished. "Father, there's still Miss Xianhua." Xianjuyin rolled his eyes and said quickly, "If there's a chance this time, let her go to the mysterious world with us to cultivate." "You like that girl?" Xian Shanshan was surprised. Xianjuyin rolled his eyes. "Of course not. I just want to help her." Xian Shanshan waved his hand, sure. Ling Kezi couldn't help but transmit his voice to Xianjuyin. "Miss Xianhua didn't leave?" Xian Shanshan said calmly, "Of course not. I just want to test Lin Sun's attitude. Alas, let's not talk about this. Anyway, if there's a chance, we should help Xianhua." Ling Kezi nodded firmly. Xianhua was indeed a good girl. Xian family. Xianhua looked at the sky alone, her clothes fluttering in the wind. She was lost in thought. Only infatuated people can be infatuated with Tao. Suddenly, Xian Caney, who was dressed in colorful clothes and had snow-white hair, appeared beside her. She looked at Xianhua and asked, "Would you like to learn swordsmanship from me?" Xianhua was stunned. "Senior, don't tell me you pity me." A touch of pity appeared in Xian Caney's eyes. "Silly girl, do you want to be further and further away from the person you love, on Tao?" As early as the first day when Xianjuyin brought Xianhua to the Xian family, Xian Caney had sensed that this girl was infatuated with love. And her swordsmanship was also infatuated with love. It didn't matter what she was infatuated with, as long as she was an infatuated person. As the saying goes, one can't live without madness. "I'm willing." After a while, Xianhua took a deep breath and nodded in agreement. Xian Caney smiled and said, "I promise you won't be disappointed if you learn swordsmanship from me. Even at the cost of all the resources of the Xian family, I will make you a peerless female sword emperor who can surpass your master." In the ultimate ruins, in the secret realm of Demon Saint, under the ruins of the collapsed mountain gate of Fengsuan Mountain, there was a sudden tremor. Not long after, the broken stone tablet with crescent and 3 stars fell down with a bang. After that, a figure crawled out from the place where the stone tablet fell with great difficulty. His hair was disheveled, and his body was branded with horrifying Dao injuries. His skin was torn and his flesh was exposed, and he looked indescribably miserable. He stood up shakily, and his eyes were filled with resentment and ruthless hatred. "Old man Pewty, when I, Luo Yunshi, return to the starry sky ancient path, I will definitely annihilate all the remnants of Fengsuan Mountain and destroy everything you left behind." He let out a roar, and his voice shook the ruins. If the great figures of the starry sky ancient path were here, they would probably not believe that this figure in ragged clothes, covered in wounds, and miserable like a beggar was the celestial emperor who controlled the forbidden power of order and suppressed the heavens. In the demon saint's secret realm, in a valley that was flowing with auspicious clouds, a handsome man in a golden robe with bright eyes suddenly woke up from his sleep, and he shouted angrily, "Alu, which evil creature is screaming?" Chapter 23:10. On the burly man's shoulder, a little man in white crossed his arms and nodded. "That's the one." Perched on the shoulder of the white-robed man was a butterfly with gorgeous wings. At this moment, it was fluttering its wings, and as its wings flashed, countless tiny cracks appeared in the surrounding void. Let's go and take a look. How dare he disturb this young master's sweet dream? I must kill that evil creature. As soon as the golden-robed man got up, a big black bird hit him on the head with a big black pot. Clang! The golden-robed man almost fainted, and a big bump appeared on his forehead. The big black bird said proudly, "Miss Ahu said that we'll only have a chance to leave this valley when we become emperors. I'll kill you." The golden-robed man covered his head and rushed out to chase after the wretched big black bird. The latter had already fled as if there was oil on its feet. As it fled, it laughed at the golden-robed man, looking very despicable. "Alu, if you're brothers, let's kill this thieving bird together." The golden-robed man shouted, "Little Silver and Little Butterfly, let's go together. Damn it, I'll use that black pot to stew it today." In the distance, near the entrance of the valley, Ahu sat cross-legged. When she heard the commotion behind her, she could not help but smile. She was already used to it. When they returned from Kunlun ruins back then, she had brought Old Toad and the others through a deep and winding space-time secret passage. They had originally planned to return to the Soul Oblivion Ocean. Who would have thought that the space-time secret passage would be pulled by the power of the ultimate, causing them to fall directly into the ultimate? Then, under Old Toad's guidance, they arrived at the Demon Saint secret zone that Lin Sun had entered back then. However, not long after, they were trapped in this valley because they had to avoid a terrifying calamity. Misfortune and fortune depended on each other. Although this valley was like an unbreakable cage, it could be said to be a rare paradise for cultivation. Chaotic aura surged, and the origin power of the great Tao surged. Over the years, their cultivations had made rapid breakthroughs. According to Ahu's speculation, if they wanted to leave, they would probably have to reach the Emperor stage to break the restriction power in this valley. Right now, they could only cultivate here and wait for the opportunity to become emperors. 10 days later, news came from the ancient path of the starry sky. Heavenly Emperor Shur had returned and reappeared in the world. For a time, the world was shaken and all the heavens in the starry sky were paying close attention. Everyone was waiting to see how the Dao Yuan Emperor, the ruler of the starry sky, would react in the face of the Dao Yuan Emperor who had snatched away the fortune of an immortal sovereign. What kind of punishment would the Copper Sparrow Tower, which had once protected the Dao Yuan Emperor, suffer? It was also at this moment that many great powers suddenly noticed that the Copper Sparrow Pavilion that was reputed to be one of the 3 dark giants had actually completely vanished, as if it had evaporated into thin air. What was most inconceivable was that after Shur Tiandi returned, he didn't take action immediately, but chose to go into seclusion. Very soon, there was a piece of heavy news that Heavenly Emperor Shur had suffered a serious Dao injury in the ultimate ruins. It was a tossed stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples, causing the world to tremble. No one could have imagined that Shur Tiandi, who controlled the forbidden power of order and was like the ruler of the starry sky, would suffer a loss in the land of the ultimate. This was too inconceivable. Haha, I knew it would be like this. When Zhongxiu heard the news, he couldn't help but laugh. Only he knew that although the gate of Fong, Siyuan Mountain, had collapsed, it was still not a place that anyone could enter and leave at will. When I control the power of the Order of Nirvana Freedom, it will be the day I take your head. Zhongxiu slowly closed his eyes and fell into a deep level of meditation. Boom! The stars moved and the world turned upside down. The figures of Lin Sun and the others suddenly appeared in a vast and magnificent world. Is this the world of True Dragon? As soon as Lin Sun fell into the world of True Dragon, he felt that the air suddenly became dense, as if he had entered a desolate and primitive land. An ancient, rough, and boundless power of heaven and earth filled the whole sky. Wisps of sparkling light rain of the Great Way filled the air. If an ordinary person entered this world, he would probably not survive. The pneuma of this world was heavy, vast, and full of majestic power, as if a mountain was pressing down on it. It was countless times more condensed than the outside world. Even if an ordinary practitioner in the lower 5 realms entered this world, he might not be able to fly in the air because he couldn't use such strong power of heaven and earth. Taking a deep breath, Big Yellow closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. Then he said, "There's the breath of those true dragons in this world. This is the world of true dragon." Lin Sun and Xie Ji were immediately relieved. Looking around, they found that this world was extremely vast. Mountains, rivers, and all things in the universe were very large. The mountains were tens of thousands of meters high, and some were even thousands of meters high. They stretched endlessly. On that vast land, any random plant would be dozens of feet tall, and any random tree would require over 100 people to wrap their arms around it. Even a random leaf was like a millstone. The butterflies flying in the air were tens of meters high, like demons and spirits. After a while, Lin Sun withdrew his gaze and said, "Big Yellow, have you heard how big the world of True Dragon is?" Big Yellow shook his head and said, "According to the legend, the real body of an emperor ancestor of a true dragon can meander for hundreds of thousands of miles in the starry sky, covering the sky and the sun. It is extremely terrifying. So, the world that can accommodate the whole tribe of true dragons is bound to be big. Then, how should we find a tribe of true dragons?" Lin Sun frowned. Second senior brother once said that the purple-robed woman, Yin Xing, came to the world of true dragon to obtain the precious blood of ancestral dragon from the bloodline of true dragons in order to recover the remnant soul of the nameless supreme emperor. This meant that Lin Sun had to find the tribe of true dragons first if he wanted to kill the purple-robed woman, Yin Xing. Moreover, Zhao Jingxian was also in the tribe of true dragons, so she might be of help. Big Yellow said, "Let's find out some information first. As the absolute overlord of the world of true dragon, the nest of true dragons must be known by everyone." Lin Sun nodded. "I'll help you find Yin Xing," Xi's voice suddenly sounded. In the next moment, she walked out of the heaven accessing place. Her graceful figure transformed into an illusory rain of light, mysterious and transcendent. Her voice was cold as she said, "I've fought with her before. As long as she appears in the world of true dragon, I'll definitely be able to capture her." Lin Sun smiled and said, "That's great." He suddenly thought of something and took out the jade slip given to him by Xian Shanshan. He handed it over and said, "Senior Xian Shanshan gave this to you." She opened the jade slip and was silent for a long time. Then she said, "In the end, I still have to go to the other side of the starry sky." The jade slip recorded clues related to her memory and identity. However, they were very fragmented and vague. The only thing she was sure of was that all the clues pointed to the other side of the starry sky. "When the time comes, I'll help you find it," Lin Sun said. She nodded. Big Yellow stared at Xi and suddenly said, "Fellow Taoist, has your cultivation already?" She glanced at Big Yellow and said, "Yes, I've crossed that threshold." Big Yellow exclaimed, "It's not easy to cross that threshold. Over the countless years, there are only a few people who can do this on the ancient path of the starry sky." Lin Sun asked curiously, "What realm is it?" Big Yellow said disdainfully, "Is this something that a second-level Emperor realm like you can think about? You'll naturally understand when you step into the Emperor Ancestor realm." As they spoke, there was a void fluctuation in the distance. "Quick, it's over there." A huge crack appeared in the sky over there and produced a shocking phenomenon. Amidst the clamor, a group of figures rushed over from afar. These figures were very strange. Some had wings on their backs, some had the head of a bull and the body of a human, and some were ferocious birds with golden wings. They were of all shapes and sizes and clearly belonged to different races. When they saw Lin Sun and his group, they could not help but be stunned. Then, they became anxious and doubtful. Originally, they thought that the phenomenon here was probably due to the appearance of some precious treasure. However, it was obvious that they guessed wrong. "It seems that we don't need to inquire blindly anymore." Big Yellow grinned. "It's a pity that they are just some nobodies in the Saint Realm. I'll leave that guy to you. What are you going to do?" A Minotaur's expression changed, and he asked nervously. The other creatures were also nervous. In their eyes, The aura of Lin Sun and his group was simply too terrifying. They just stood there casually like gods descending from the heavens. Don't be nervous. I just want to inquire some information from you. Lin Sun said in a gentle voice that he wanted to visit the true dragon tribe. Suddenly, those creatures showed a strange expression. They did not even know where the true dragon tribe was. They were definitely not from the true dragon world. The Minotaur said quickly, "Seniors, the true dragon tribe is located in the depths of the East Sea. As for the specific location, only a few people know." The other creatures nodded. The true dragon bloodline was the ruler of this world. They were supreme existences. Naturally, the exact location of their residence was not something that just anyone could find out. "How far is the East Sea from here?" Lin Sun asked. "About hundreds of millions of miles away." A creature with wings on its back replied. Lin Sun and Big Yellow looked at each other. The true dragon world was simply too vast. After that, Lin Sun inquired about some other matters. Very soon, he learned that every city in the vast territory of the true dragon world had a great force attached to the bloodline of the true dragon. He might be able to find out more information about the bloodline of the true dragon through the leaders of these great forces. Several million miles away from this place was a huge city by the name of Golden Leaf. The power that controlled the city was the true dragon imperial clan. After understanding all this, Lin Sun brought Xia Ji, Shi, and Big Yellow with him. After seeing them off with their eyes, those creatures felt as if they had just survived a calamity. They wiped off their sweat with lingering fear in their hearts. Those humans were simply too terrifying. An hour later, far away, Lin Sun had already seen the outline of a towering city on the vast land. Chapter 23:11. Golden Leaf City. It was the largest city within a circumference of 1,000,000 miles. Since ancient times, it had always been controlled by the true Ho imperial clan. Every day, there would be creatures from the large tribes living in the nearby territories coming to Golden Leaf City to trade. Most of them were here to exchange cultivation resources. Because of this, Gold Leaf City was extremely prosperous. In terms of the scale of the city, it could be ranked among the top 100 cities in the true dragon world. Big Yellow, we're here to scout for information. Without my order, don't act on your own. Lin Sun reminded. Big Yellow was too domineering and arrogant. If he wasn't restrained, he would definitely be a troublemaker. Big Yellow sneered and looked disdainful. Don't worry, I won't bother with ordinary trash at all. Will the deities in heaven care about those ants? These words were very ear-piercing. It was a problem with one's worldview. But Lin Sun didn't bother to correct them. As long as they didn't make trouble, everything was fine. Following this, Lin Sun instructed Shi and Summer Solstice to restrain their auras. He wanted to keep a low profile to avoid unnecessary trouble. Immediately, the group moved toward Chinya City in the distance. Along the way, they saw many strange creatures. They could recognize some of them, but it was their first time seeing existences like Big Yellow and Shi. It looked like a living creature, like a foot-tall dwarf. Its legs were covered with roots, and its head was covered with green branches and leaves. It had triangular eyes, a large nose, and its mouth was filled with fine, snow-white fangs. It looked very ferocious. It was hard for one to tell whether this was a plant spirit or a vicious bird or a beast. Either way, it was extremely strange. There were also some living beings that looked like giant marbles that bounced through the air. Anyone who saw them would have the urge to kick them. But soon, Lin Sun and the others noticed that no matter what kind of creatures they were, when they saw them, they all showed a strange look, as if they were staring at a group of monsters. This made Lin frown. What was going on? Didn't you notice that there wasn't a single human cultivator among the creatures we saw along the way? Perhaps that's why they were so surprised when we appeared. Shi's voice was cold. Lin Sun nodded. Shi's reminder made him realize that human cultivators seemed to be extremely rare in the Jinlong world. Even though some creatures had taken the form of humans, their appearances and auras were fundamentally different from that of humans. Friend from the dog clan. Suddenly, a robust man flew over from afar. He had brilliant golden hair, eyes that were like copper bells, and his arms that were thick like rocks were covered in a layer of scales. He looked at Big Yellow, pointed at Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Shi, and asked, "Are these the human slaves you captured?" Big Yellow was stunned and looked at Lin Sun and the others. Lin Sun and the others also frowned. This sentence inadvertently revealed a humiliation to the human clan. Looking at this burly man, his expression and words were very casual. Obviously, he had long been accustomed to seeing humans as lowly existences like slaves. Besides, he spoke directly to Big Yellow, which indirectly showed his attitude. "What's the matter?" Big Yellow asked. "My young master has taken a fancy to this female slave." The burly man pointed at She and said, "He wants to buy her. Name a price." Big Yellow's eyes widened in disbelief. "You want to buy her?" The burly man frowned. "She's just a lowly slave. Do you think my Golden Dragon Lion clan can't afford her?" As he spoke, he casually threw a storage bag in front of Big Yellow. "There are 1,000 true dragon treasure coins in this bag. If you put them in the market, you could buy 17 or 18 lowly slaves of the human clan." Big Yellow laughed and said, "Where's your young master?" The tall and sturdy man pointed into the distance. There was an enormous treasured ship that was completely gilded in gold, and it was dazzling under the light of the sky. When Lin Sun and the others looked over, they saw an incomparably valiant, golden-haired young man in a magnificent robe walk out of the treasure ship. His eyes swept over like lightning, and he said, "Friend, it's me who has taken a fancy to that girl. Can you give me face?" His words were filled with arrogance. Big Yellow sighed softly. "Lin Sun, I didn't take the initiative to cause trouble. It's these blind bastards who foolishly came to die. What did you say?" The burly man was furious. Big Yellow glanced at him. Bang! The burly man's body exploded, and his flesh and blood were directly wiped out. Big Yellow was disdainful, shouting and shouting. "Do you really think I won't bother with ants?" On the golden treasure ship in the distance, the luxuriously robed young man frowned and shouted, "How dare you kill my retainer?" Big Yellow didn't feel any pressure when killing such a character. He didn't even bother to talk nonsense. He swept his eyes around and made a bang sound. The golden treasure ship in the distance exploded. The luxuriously robed young man didn't have time to escape and exploded along with the treasure ship. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun didn't stop him, since he dared to have designs on Shi. Even if Big Yellow didn't make a move, he wouldn't be polite. This area wasn't far from Golden Leaf City. When the golden treasure ship belonging to the Golden Dragon Lion clan exploded, many living beings in the vicinity were alarmed. That lowly human actually dared to attack the Golden Dragon Lion clan? Many living beings of various races couldn't believe it. How many years has it been? The human race has been like slaves. They can only be enslaved. What do they dare to be so bold? Are these fellows rebelling? A clamor sounded. Many people looked at Lin Sun and the others with bewilderment and astonishment. Lin Sun and the others couldn't help but frown when they heard these voices. The living beings of the Jinlong world seemed to be very unfriendly toward the human race. "How dare you? How dare you cause trouble in front of Golden Leaf City? Go and capture all those human scums." Suddenly, an explosive shout that was like a thunderclap resounded from the extremely distant Golden Leaf City, and it resounded through the clouds. A ferocious figure stood on the city gate tower. Many living beings recognized that it was Ho Kuei, the quasi-emperor of the Jinlong imperial clan. Instantly, a group of figures rushed out of Golden Leaf City. They were fully armed and full of killing intent as they charged toward Lin Sun and the others. Whoosh! This time, she made a move. He waved his hand casually. In the void, dozens of figures were torn apart like flies in a hurricane. Their bodies exploded and blood mist filled the air. With a wave of his hand, he killed all the guards of the Jinlong imperial clan. All the living beings present were dumbfounded. They screamed in fear, and the scene turned chaotic. Lin Sun didn't expect she to take the initiative to make a move. He couldn't help glancing at her. She said coldly, "With our strength, why do we need to endure?" As she spoke, she disappeared into thin air. The next moment, she appeared on the city gate tower and grabbed the ferocious quasi-emperor Hokuei. Hokuei had been full of killing intent and extremely arrogant a moment ago. Now, he was so scared that he almost wet his pants. He asked in fear, "Who exactly are you?" Crack! Hokuei's neck was twisted and his spirit was extracted by she. Then, she used a secret technique to search his spirit. Yellow grew excited. "Brat, did you see that? This is how we do things. When we should keep a low profile, we should keep a low profile. When we should be arrogant, why would we care about anything?" Lin Sun's lips twitched, and he sighed softly. "I didn't expect the races of the Jinlong Imperial Clan to treat us human cultivators like this." The Jinlong Imperial Clan controlled the Jinlong Imperial Clan. Did this mean that in the eyes of the Jinlong Imperial Clan, human cultivators were as despicable as slaves? The foundation of the Jinlong Imperial Clan is not bad. They have 2 old fellows at the 8th level of the Emperor Realm and more than 10 other Emperor Realm cultivators. She's cold voice sounded from the city gate tower in the distance. This clan controls a territory of 15 million miles. They have more than 100 subordinate races of different sizes. However, I didn't find any valuable clues related to the Jinlong Imperial Clan from this person. I can only say that this kind of person is only suitable to be a gatekeeper. As he spoke, she twisted his finger, and Hokuei's spirit was crushed inch by inch. Lin Sun and the others teleported and arrived at the city gate tower. Chinya's city was extremely prosperous. However, the commotion here had already caused panic in the surrounding areas. Many races were fleeing in panic. The scene was extremely chaotic. In my opinion, if we wait here, that old thing from the Jinlong Imperial Clan will definitely come to us. Lin Sun and Big Yellow immediately agreed with Shi's words. I'm just very puzzled. Why do the races living in this world humiliate and look down on human cultivators? As Lin Sun spoke, he stretched out his hand and grabbed a colorful, ferocious bird across the air. Without asking anything, Lin Sun's divine consciousness entered the bird's spirit and started to sense it. After a while, Lin Sun finally got some vague answers. There were more than 10,000 races in the Jinlong Imperial Clan. The Jinlong Imperial Clan was the king of all races and ruled this world. About 100,000 years ago, the Mingluo Dragon Emperor, the clan leader of the Jinlong Imperial Clan, suddenly issued an order. He viewed the humans as the sinners of the Jinlong Imperial Clan and summoned all races to carry out a cruel and bloody suppression. In just 100 years, there were very few human forces living in the Jinlong Imperial Clan. They had completely withered. It was not until the Mingluo Dragon Emperor left the Jinlong Imperial Clan and went to the Nirvana world that the Jinlong Imperial Clan stopped persecuting the humans. But at that time, the number of human cultivators who survived in the vast Jinlong Imperial Clan was no more than 100,000. They were completely reduced to the lowest race in the Jinlong Imperial Clan. Until now, they were still humiliated, trampled, and enslaved by all races. This fact sent a chill down Lin Sun's spine. 100,000 years ago, they slaughtered human cultivators in the entire Jinlong Imperial Clan. Why on earth? Big Yellow, do you know the Mingluo Dragon Emperor? Lin Sun asked. Yes, I do. Big Yellow answered without hesitation. This old worm once participated in the law battle of emperors. It is said that more than a dozen emperors from the Jinlong Imperial Clan who came with him were all killed by the Deer Formation Emperor. The Mingluo Dragon Emperor was seriously injured and fled back to the Jinlong Imperial Clan. Lin Sun was stunned. The law battle of emperors broke out in the ancient times 100,000 years ago. Chapter 23:12. Golden Leaf City was extremely large. It occupied an area of tens of thousands of miles. The streets were densely packed like cobwebs, and the buildings were row upon row. However, Lin Sun and the others did not have to wait for long before a group of big shots from the true Ho Imperial Clan arrived through the void. All of them were filled with murderous intent and caused a commotion in the city. The person in the lead was a purple-robed man with a long beard. His eyes were dark green, and they shone with a ferocious and cold luster. His entire body was emitting the terrifying might of an emperor. They flew majestically from the sky above the city, appearing incomparably ostentatious and domineering. Someone actually dares to cause trouble in our city. I think he must be tired of living. A man with a head full of green hair said sinisterly. The others also revealed ferocious looks. In the True Dragon world, the True Dragon clan was the ruler. In Golden Leaf City, the True Ho clan was the ruler. Now, there were actually lowly humans coming to cause trouble. The people from a True Ho imperial clan did not dare to believe it. Since when did the human scum dare to be so arrogant? And they did not escape. Soon, they saw Lin Sun and the others standing on the city wall. They could not help but feel surprised. Don't act rashly. The purple-robed man in the lead frowned. He felt that something was amiss. Old ancestor, what are you afraid of? This is the territory of the true Ho lineage. Even if the emperor comes, he will have to lie down. The green-haired man said as he charged forward. Let me test the capabilities of those scum first. Whoosh. He moved his body and arrived before the city wall. He swept his gaze across Lin Sun and the others and said sinisterly, It's you, scum. Before he finished speaking, she flicked his finger. Bang! The green-haired, arrogant, and hot-tempered fellow's body exploded in midair. Blood rained down like a waterfall. Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Big Yellow had calm expressions on their faces. In the distance, the purple-robed man and the other experts from the true Ho lineage were in disbelief. Killing without a word? They had never encountered such an arrogant enemy. The main character is here. Are you going to do it, or should I? She asked coldly. Let me do it. Lin Sun stepped forward and was about to say something when the purple-robed man bowed and said with fear and trepidation, I am Ho Tianqing from the true Ho lineage. Nice to meet you, seniors. The experts of the true Ho lineage around him were all stunned. What was going on? In the city in the distance, all of the beings who witnessed this scene were flabbergasted. The battle Emperor Tianqing of the Zhen Ho lineage was bowing to those lowly humans? This was simply too much. If word of this got out, where would the Zhen Ho lineage put its face? However, there were many creatures who sensed that the situation wasn't right. Those human race experts might not be ordinary figures. Ho Tianqing's forehead was covered in sweat as he said fearfully, We were blind before. Please be magnanimous and forgive us, seniors. Big Yellow sneered. You're an Emperor realm existence, but you're so scared. How useless. Ho Tianqing lowered his head in embarrassment and became even more humble. Seniors, if you don't mind, then please follow me to the clan as guests. No matter what, it was my Zhen Ho bloodline that was in the wrong this time, and we naturally have to make up for it. Sure. Lin Sun nodded. Ho Tianqing was greatly relieved. He smiled warmly and said, Seniors, please follow me. Immediately, he led the way, and Lin Sun and the others followed behind. As the overlord that controlled a territory of 15 million miles, the true Ho Imperial clan's territory was not in Golden Leaf City. Instead, it was located in a beautiful mountain range 800 miles away from Golden Leaf City. It could be said to be a famed blessed land. Divine radiance suffused the mountain with flowing waterfalls, flowing springs, ancient trees, and ancient palaces that stood towering in disorder could be seen everywhere. Ho Tianqing led Lin Sun and the others into a hall. After they were seated, Ho Tianqing apologized again and then asked about the purpose of their visit. Lin Sun had nothing to hide, so he told Ho Tianqing that he wanted to go to the True Dragon clan. What do you want to do there? Ho Tianqing couldn't help asking. Big Yellow said coldly, That's not something you can ask. Ho Tianqing was embarrassed and said, To tell you the truth, the True Dragon clan is located in the depths of the East Sea. It's called Dragon Palace, but we don't know where it is exactly. Seeing Lin Sun frowning, Ho Tianqing hurriedly said, But you can rest assured that we can contact the strong practitioners of the True Dragon clan. How long will it take? Lin Sun asked directly. 10 days, no, 3 days. Ho Tianqing said, In the True Dragon world, it's most difficult to invite the strong practitioners of the True Dragon bloodline. I hope you can understand. Lin Sun nodded and said, Thank you. Ho Tianqing smiled and said, As long as you don't mind the mistakes of the true dragon bloodline, it's enough. Then Lin's son asked some more questions. Ho Tianxing was very cooperative and told Lin's son everything he knew. Lin's son soon learned about the situation in the true dragon world. But when Lin's son asked about the reason why Minluo Dragon Emperor slaughtered humans, Ho Tianxing shook his head. 100,000 years ago, Minluo Dragon Emperor was the leader of the True Dragon clan and the only ruler of this world. Which clan dared to disobey his decision? Ho Tianxing said, it said that there was a great conflict within the True Dragon clan, but it was finally suppressed by Minluo Dragon Emperor alone. Lin Sun asked, so the order to slaughter humans was Minluo Dragon Emperor's willful action? Ho Tianxing smiled awkwardly and said, I dare not comment on it. Soon, Lin Sun asked about the assembly of dragons and immortals held decades ago. Ho Tianxing knew something about it. The assembly of dragons was an unprecedented event of the True Dragon clan. It caused a sensation in the world when it was held. But only the True Dragon clan and the 9 Emperor clans under the command of the True Dragon clan could participate in this event. The 9 Emperor clans were related to the True Dragon clan by blood and respected the True Dragon clan. They were Ice Dragon, Tao Wu, Fushi, Paleo, Bishi, Baxia, Chionyo, Taunt, and Yazi. Lin Sun's expression changed when he learned this. When he was young, he got the inheritance of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon, which was the same as the 9 Emperor clans. Was it a coincidence? Definitely not. When Ao, Jintian, and Yin Huan went to the ancient Desolation Realm to pick up Zhao Jingxian, they said that the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon was a forbidden inheritance of the True Dragon bloodline. The inheritance of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon was left in the Xiao Empire by Lu Boya. Similarly, Zhao Jingshuan's mother, the Empress of the Xiao Empire, was a direct descendant of the True Dragon bloodline. According to Ao Jintian, Zhao Jingshuan's mother was the younger sister of the patriarch of the True Dragon bloodline. In other words, Zhao Jingxian also had the blood of the True Dragon bloodline. Because of this, Lin Sun agreed to let Zhao Jingxian leave with Ao Jintian and go to the True Dragon world to participate in the Allen Dragon's immortal gathering. According to Ho Tianxing, a shocking change had taken place during the 10,000 Dragon Immortal Gathering several decades ago. As a result, the True Dragon bloodline had blocked all information about the gathering. So far, there were different opinions about what happened in the Allen Dragon's Immortal Gathering, and no one had a clear answer. From then on, the True Dragon bloodline sent a group of elders to completely cut off the path between the True Dragon world and the Starry Sky Ancient Path. Speaking of this, Ho Tianxing frowned and said, at that time, all the clans in the world were wondering what happened in the Allen Dragon's immortal gathering that made the True Dragon bloodline destroy the path to the Starry Sky Ancient Path. It was too abnormal. Big Yellow laughed and said, did the True Dragon bloodline worry that someone would kill them from the Starry Sky Ancient Path? Or perhaps the consequences of this unforeseen event will cause some future troubles, and these future troubles are related to the Starry Sky Ancient Path? Lin Sun's eyelids twitched. He couldn't help thinking that the True Dragon world rarely contacted the Starry Sky Ancient Path. At that time, Jingxian went to the True Dragon world from the Starry Sky Ancient Path to participate in the Allen Dragon's immortal gathering. However, something happened at the gathering. All this was too much of a coincidence. After chatting for a while, Ho Tianxing stood up and left. He said that he was going to contact the experts of the True Dragon bloodline and ask them to wait here for 3 days. After Ho Tianxing left, Big Yellow snorted and said that guy pretended to be terrified just now. She also said, after we entered this hall, there were many willpower spying on the situation here. Lin Sun nodded and said calmly, it's impossible for an ancient imperial family that controls a territory of 30 million miles to bow down to us without testing. After pausing for a moment, he continued, moreover, the living beings of the True Dragon world view humans as lowly slaves. An ancient power like the True Ho Imperial clan is bound to not lower its head to us sincerely. Then why did you agree to let him come? Big Yellow said angrily. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If he obediently helps us contact the members of the true dragon tribe, I can't be bothered to bicker with them. However, if he is dishonest. But if he doesn't, Lin Sun looked at Big Yellow, she, and Xia Ji with a smile, and said indifferently, I'll make them behave. They talked to each other through voice transmission, so they didn't have to worry about being overheard. At the same time, a group of old monsters of the true dragon bloodline gathered in an ancient hall that was covered with layers of restrictive power. Their expressions were cold and gloomy, and a cold light flickered in their eyes. They had already learned about what had happened in Golden Leaf City and the death of Quasi-Emperor Hokue. Based on their earlier observation, they concluded that the man, 2 women, and a dog were all martial emperors of the human race. They couldn't tell how strong they were at the moment, but they were sure that they were not ordinary martial emperors since they could come to visit the true dragon bloodline so calmly. This made them extremely conflicted and hesitant. Chapter 23:13. The next morning. Anyway, there's still 2 days left. Shall we go to Golden Leaf City and have a look? Big Yellow said excitedly. There are many rare creatures living in this place. There must be many delicious foods that can't be found in the outside world. Lin Sun was stunned and looked at Xia Ji and she. It's okay to have a look, she said coldly. As for Xia Ji, she always followed Lin Sun's lead. Then let's go there. Lin Sun made a decision. But as soon as he opened the door of the hall, he stopped and said, It seems that something is wrong. As soon as he finished speaking, the fluctuations of restrictions that shot into the sky suddenly surged out from the surroundings of the courtyard they resided in, and it emanated dazzling radiance that covered this expanse of the sky. The obscure restriction was like a cage of the Great Way, trapping the courtyard where Lin Sun and the others were. These bastards really have evil intentions, Big Yellow said gloomily. Lin Sun's dark eyes glanced around and said, It seems that we have to pass this obstacle before we go to Golden Leaf City. Everyone, I'm really sorry. Ho Tianxing's voice sounded from outside the courtyard, covered by the restriction. If I let you leave like this, I really can't do it. It is difficult to see through the willows and willows, to cut through the linden, roundworm, mu ai, shou suo, yuluo, wu san. His voice sounded helpless, but his tone was relaxed with a hint of complacency. Why are you talking nonsense with those human bastards? Activate the restriction and kill them. A cold shout sounded, full of killing intent. After all, he is a great human emperor. We should at least respect him. A deep voice sounded. Friends of the human clan, as long as you can walk out of this restriction alive, I, Ho Zhongjio, promise not to embarrass you and will be happy to help you contact the true dragon clan. If you die, you can only blame your incompetence. Boom! As soon as the voice fell, the restriction covering the courtyard was suddenly activated. The dense patterns roared and countless stars emerged. In an instant, Lin Sun and the others seemed to be in a starry sky. There were stars roaring from all directions, constantly burning and exploding, producing terrible destructive power. An emperor path, forbidden formation. It seems that Ho Tianxing already had ill intentions when he brought us here yesterday. Big Yellow sneered and slapped with its claw to shatter a star that whistled toward it. Let me do it. Lin Sun took a deep breath. His dark eyes were deep, and he saw all the subtle changes in the starry sky. He began to break the formation. As a great grandmaster with superb attainments in spiritual tattoos, Lin Sun, who had reached the Judi realm, was trapped by such a formation, which would be the biggest joke in the world. Boom! With a flick of his sleeve, countless rays of light surged into appearance and charged into the sky, and they transformed into numerous profound and obscure symbols that were embedded within the stars that covered the sky. Big Yellow, Shi, and Xia Ji guarded him. Outside the grand array, a bunch of real people, Zhenwei Mimu Bo Huang, Chong pair forging, play the role of an emperor? Is it commonly known as Hydri? Huanya's heart palpitated and froze to death. This formation was called 10,000 Stars Reversal, and it had been set up in their true phoenix since ancient times. Kuei Yin Bao Na Yin Zhang, Wu, Seagull Fan, Ji, Jiao Mallet Sang, Lo Ji, Clam Glue Course Steed, Gamma, Pung Tao Pung, vulgar, gather, Huan, play with mechanical na, G, embarrassed, Wei Ren Xian, neck G, dizzy. An old man in a yellow robe was holding a yellow flag in his hand, and he was controlling the grand array calmly. Speaking of which, do you know where these human emperors came from? Why haven't we heard of them before? Someone asked. In the true dragon world, the human race had declined, and they were like lowly slaves that were trampled by the other races. Not to mention emperors, even martial saints were rare. But now, a man, 2 women, and a dog had appeared, and all of them had cultivation above the martial emperor realm. This was unbelievable. The path to the starry sky, ancient path, has long been destroyed by the true dragon race, and the path to the other side has always been controlled by the true dragon, black tortoise, white tiger, and immortal phoenix. Someone said, if these guys came from the other side, they would have alerted the true dragon race a long time ago. They wouldn't have come to us to ask about the true dragon race. What's the point of thinking so much? Let's just kill them and be done with it. More people didn't think so. Someone said with a smile, after we kill them, I'll use their bodies to refine monarch weapons. Don't you dare compete with me. Hearing that, was it true? And Eunuch's thumb and Song Yao's urgent call? Was it true? Boom! An earth-shattering rumble suddenly resounded, and the old man holding the apricot yellow flag suddenly shouted, "You're dead." Oh no, they're breaking the formation. His voice shook the clouds, and the old monsters were startled. That was an ancient formation that could trap and kill martial monarchs. How could it be broken? Elder Xiao, don't joke around. It's not funny at all, Ho Tianqing said with a gloomy face. It's not a joke, of course it's not funny. Suddenly, a ghastly and ferocious voice resounded from within the formation. Boom! The formation covering the courtyard suddenly exploded at this moment. A rain of light scattered and turbulence spread out. Almost at the same time, Big Yellow dashed out like a violent and dazzling lightning, and it swung its claws. Bang! The head of the old man holding the apricot yellow flag exploded, and he died on the spot. Bastard! Damn it! How is this possible? Are those real? Yao Dali Song Qianyue? Cherry Blossoms? Mist Cutter Sword? Zhao Sui? Roundworm? Waste? Is it enough for Camel Trance Yellow Bottle? Most frightening of all was that the dog was too terrifying. With a wave of its paw, it had killed a great emperor from their clan. Big Yellow's dark eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent, and it bared its white and shiny teeth. I've never tasted real food in my life. Jane, climbing, poking, and playing boom. As it spoke, it moved horizontally across the void, bringing with it a sky full of Tao light that headed towards the true immortals. Yao the blind Ji, Bai, you're courting death. An 8th-level great emperor shouted with a cold expression. He wielded a bone spear and charged towards Big Yellow. At the same time, the other true immortals, Yao Dali Song Xiao, playing, Huan Li Fei, Xiani, Ji, Zhu, Chun Pan Han, really? Lin, Chubby Heart, Slow, Hibiscus, Zhao, Luan, Choking Eyes, Zhilang, Huh, Yunren Bao, Zhuiqiu Wei Lu, Di Chong Zhan Nua Lai Na Che, arrive at school, stomp on Jubin, all screen, huh, which one of these true immortals? Separating the eunuchs and oysters, stir-fried rice, Song Xian, Huang Xian, Zheng, Moat Provoke Mortis, Kai Chong Na Pingjila. Unfortunately, their opponent this time was much scarier than they had expected. Boom! Big Yellow's claw slammed down, and thousands of rays of light rumbled like a tsunami. An unparalleled great emperor aura rolled out, shattering all the attacks. Clang! The bone spear of the 8th-level martial emperor realm cultivator almost shattered from the impact. The cultivator staggered, and before he could react, his chest was crushed by Goldie's claw. Crack! The 8th-level great emperor's bones shattered, and he screamed in pain as he was sent flying. The other old monsters were dumbstruck. Who would have thought that they would really? Jinwei Kong Mu Blind? Huh? Emperor and Brother Hui? School? Puff. Meanwhile, she seized the opportunity of the chaos to attack. His figure was like an illusion as he suddenly appeared before an old freak, and then he waved his fair and slender hand, causing the old freak's body to instantly transform into ashes. He seemed to have been completely incinerated in an instant, and both his body and soul were obliterated. On the other side, Lin Sun and Xia Ji also rushed out. The former emitted a terrifying aura that belonged to Great Emperor Juin, causing the sky to wail and the clouds to collapse. The latter wielded a white bone spear that flickered like a flowing light. With a wave of his spear, he crushed the head of an old monster. Kill! At this moment, Big Yellow, Shi, Lin Sun, and Xia Ji no longer held back when they attacked. No matter who it was impossible for them to not be angry after being tricked like this. For a time, this place was in an uproar. The sound of the Tao rumbled, and a bloody stench spread. The nearby mountains collapsed and collapsed. Dazzling? Staff puppet? Major? It's only hot. Is this true? Living in harmony with each other? Thicket towering to the north? How many ships are there? Let a man hold a sword? Go to bed? Chaoran sway? Weiran? Pardon in a short moment, this top-notch blessed land was already in a state of devastation, and there were scenes of collapse and ruin everywhere. Stop! Stop! Endless sorrowful roars resounded and reverberated between heaven and earth. I'm begging you, give me the truth. Kagwan flounder, Huan, she dazzling Jian screen? Drapery and slay, tricks, the heart-wrenching and lung-splitting pleas were incessant. In the end, Ho Tianxing was the only one left on the chaotic battlefield. It was also at this time that Lin Sun and the others stopped. Plop! Ho Tianxing, bathed in blood, knelt on the ground. Grief, regret, bitterness, panic, all kinds of emotions were rolling in his chest, and he was on the verge of breaking down. How could he have expected that just to deal with 3 thearchs of the human race and a dog would bring such a calamity to his race? After this battle, they were almost the truth. Eunuch Liuye's sword? Even if they could survive, they were doomed to lose their former glory and power in the future. Don't worry. You're still valuable and won't die like this. Whether your clan can be saved or not depends on whether you cooperate with us. Lin Sun said coldly. A gust of mountain wind blew, making Ho Tianxing shiver all over and sober up a little. Then he bowed his head bitterly. I'm willing to cooperate. Big Yellow, go and clean up the spoils. We'll leave right away. Lin Sun ordered. Boy, how dare you order me around? Big Yellow complained discontentedly, but he still went to do it obediently in the end. There was no other way. Lin Sun had a good senior brother. In fact, Lin Sun was also helpless. Whether it was Xia Ji or Shi, he was too embarrassed to order them around. Then he could only trouble Big Yellow. Now, tell me how you contacted the people of the true dragon lineage. Chapter 23:14. Ho Tianxing didn't dare to play any more tricks and told Lin Sun everything he knew. Do you hate me? Lin Sun asked. Ho Tianxing said bitterly with disheveled hair. I dare not. Lin Sun said indifferently. It's useless to hate me. If we were defeated today, would you let us go? Ho Tianxing's face was stiff. There was nothing sadder than a dead heart. This was what he felt at the moment. Take care of yourself. Lin Sun left with Xia Solstice, Shi, and Big Yellow when Big Yellow returned with a full load. It wasn't until they disappeared that Ho Tianxing came back to his senses. Those human emperors didn't kill them all? He was so confused that he couldn't come to himself for a long time. Why didn't you kill them all? Big Yellow couldn't help asking on the way. Were they a threat? Lin Sun asked. No. Big Yellow shook his head. We didn't even have a chance to take revenge. After all, they were just passers-by and couldn't stay in the true dragon world forever. Some people deserve to die, and some are innocent. I, Lin Sun, have never thought of killing indiscriminately since I started my cultivation. Lin Sun suddenly thought of the golden cicada, youth who had made a great wish that all living beings in the world could become saints one day. What kind of breadth of mind was this? Compared to this, using bloody and cruel methods to slaughter some innocent people, what difference was there between that and the evil people that he loathed? So what if I'm the enemy of the whole world? Big Yellow asked suddenly. Then I'll ask for an invincible way. Lin Sun laughed. Big Yellow sneered. Invincible? Throughout the heavens and throughout the ages, who would dare claim to be invincible in the Grand Tao. Lin Sun said leisurely, not in the past, but what if there will be in the future? Big Yellow laughed. Obviously, he didn't take Lin Sun's words seriously. She looked at Lin Sun thoughtfully. Lin Sun, who had the foundation of the immortal Supreme Road, might have a chance. She as Solstice accompanied Lin Sun all the time. She was very quiet as long as she was with Lin Sun. Where are we going next? Big Yellow asked. East Sea. 1 day later. Really? South Sea with delicacies? 4. Conch. Mirage Leap? Zong? Mistletoe? Poison? What was truly inconceivable to the various races of the True Dragon world was that this battle had almost flattened the True Dragon race. Jinwei Mi now, Qi, wound dissecting and snatching vinegar evenly, vulgar and vulgar, neon and neon remaining, but no matter how much the outside world inquired, the truth, dazzling in the willows. Lonely Way I Huang Kong Chong Yue 10 days later. East Sea. The blue sea looked like it had been washed, waves surging, stretching as far as the eye could see. In the True Dragon world, the Eastern Sea was the most sacred territory, and it was just like the primordial world's central plains. The reason was that the ruler of the True Dragon world, the True Dragon bloodline, resided in the depths of the East Sea. The East Sea was incomparably vast. It was like a boundless ocean country, and there were many creatures living in it. Among them, the 9 great imperial clans that had attached themselves to the bloodline of the True Dragon were the most powerful. They were viewed as the strongest 9 great imperial clans under the True Dragon. At the shore of the East Sea, there were tens of thousands of cities and ferries scattered along the long and winding coastline. They were like pearls strung together on the coastline. Floating Cloud City, one of the cities on the East Sea. Early morning, Floating Cloud City's ferry. Numerous figures had been waiting at the ferry since a long time ago. On the surface of the sea not far from the ferry was an enormous treasured ship that belonged to the Taowu imperial clan. It was like a floating continent, and it was comparable to a small city. This treasured ship was sailing towards the Emerald Rainbow Island in the Eastern Sea. It was an island controlled by the Taowu imperial clan, and it was famous for its prosperous trade and prosperity. Every single day, living beings from all over the world would bring all sorts of precious treasures and cultivation resources to the Emerald Rainbow Island to conduct trade and exchange. So, the Emerald Rainbow Island had the reputation of being the place where all the races traded. Lin Sun paid 3,000 True Dragon coins and obtained a boarding command token, and then he followed the crowd onto the enormous treasured ship. According to the different prices on the treasured ship, the accommodations provided to the passengers were different as well, and some high-quality abodes even had to be booked in advance. When Lin Sun bought the boarding command token, only the most ordinary room remained, and it was situated at the lowest point of the treasured ship. He didn't mind this at all, although he still had his original appearance. The aura he was emitting was unique to the living beings of the Cloud Spirit clan. As for Big Yellow, Xia Ji, and Shi, they were all arranged to stay in the Tower of Infinity. Was the Cloud Spirit clan attached to the True Dragon clan? Was the Cloud Spirit clan attached to the True Dragon clan? Woo. Trade? Beg? Feed? Lin Sun wasn't heading to the Emerald Rainbow Island to trade for goods. Instead, he was going to contact a woman called Shui from the Taowu Imperial clan. Through Shui, he would be able to come into contact with the True Dragon clan. After entering his room, Lin Sun sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. Suddenly, a childish cry sounded from the room beside him. Following that, a cold voice berated, "Shut up." Then, silence filled the room. The lowest point of the treasure ship was filled with many rooms. Although they were close to each other, the rooms were all covered in restrictive power that could isolate the probing of one's divine sense. Evidently, the neighboring room had activated a restrictive power that isolated the sounds coming from it. However, to someone of Lin Sun's level, the restrictive power was practically non-existent. Soon, he noticed something with his divine sense. In the room next door, 2 men with ugly faces and gray fur were sitting in front of a wooden table. On the wooden table, there was a young girl in her teens. Her hands and feet were tied up, her clothes were ragged, and her hair was disheveled. Her large eyes were filled with tears and pain. She opened her mouth to scream, but was unable to let out a single sound. One of the skinny men was holding a silver blade. The snow-white blade sliced open the young girl's chest, causing captivating red blood to flow out. The other short and fat man held a porcelain bowl and caught the blood. With a greedy look in his eyes, he licked his lips and said, "Be careful. Don't kill her. The blood of a young human girl's heart is a first-rate delicacy." The skinny man laughed sinisterly. "Rest assured, a little girl like her can be sold for 3,000 true dragon coins on the Emerald Rainbow Island. I wouldn't be willing to kill her." As he spoke, he took out a medicinal pill and smeared it on the young girl's wound. After that, he picked her up and casually tossed her to a corner. The short and fat man split the bowl of blood into two and passed it to the skinny man. "Come, let's drink this cup of the young girl's heart blood together. I wish that we'll be able to make a fortune this time." Right at this moment, the door opened silently, and a seductive woman with a graceful figure and faintly discernible snow-white skin walked in. "How audacious of you to secretly drink blood. Aren't you afraid that boss will throw you into the East Sea to feed the fishes if he finds out?" The woman's voice was delicate and seductive. Even though she spoke like this, she snatched the porcelain bowl from the two men's hands and drank the blood in one gulp. The skinny man and the short and fat man glanced at each other and seemed to be relieved. "Is there more?" The woman licked her scarlet lips. She wore a black gauze that revealed a large expanse of plump snow-white skin that trembled dazzlingly. It made the eyes of the two men burn with desire. "Yes, yes, yes. Sister May, please wait a moment," the skinny man said as he opened a treasure pouch and swiftly took out 5 or 6 figures. They were all human girls. The youngest was only 8 or 9 years old, while the oldest was only 13 or 14 years old. Their faces were immature, and their clothes were ragged and dirty. They seemed to have gone through a lot of torture. Their bodies were covered in bruises, their expressions were numb, and their eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. They were like a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The dim and mottled light shone on their thin bodies, making them seem so fragile and pitiful. The seductive woman's eyes lit up as if she was choosing prey. She pointed at the youngest girl and said, "She's the one." The little girl had neat bangs and big eyes. She was only 8 or 9 years old and didn't know what she was going to face. Hearing this, she asked with hope, "Sister, do you want to buy me? Don't look at me because I'm young, but I know how to plant flowers and gather herbs. When I grow up, I'll definitely be a good slave." The seductive woman and the two men couldn't help but laugh. This lowly human thing already knew that she was a commodity from a young age and could be chosen at will. Interesting. Be good. Sister is just thirsty. The seductive woman stretched out her hand and gestured at the little girl's chest. "Later, I want to drink some of your blood. You're not allowed to cry. Drink blood." The little girl's face was pale and her eyes were filled with fear. Tears filled her eyes as she said, "Sister, can you not drink my blood?" With a plop, she knelt there. The other girls nearby also trembled and knelt on the ground. Their expressions were filled with uneasiness as they trembled. As a human, you are born with the original sin. You could be a slave, you could be a commodity, and you can also be food. Do you understand? The seductive woman said with a smile, "If you don't agree, you will die. Didn't your parents tell you that if you all die, the number of humans will become fewer and fewer? In the future, you might even become extinct." "Sister May, they are just some trash. Why are you telling them this?" The skinny man said as he picked up the 8 or 9-year-old girl and pressed her down on the table. He tied her hands and feet with rough and rude actions. No matter how much the girl screamed and cried, he remained indifferent. Clang! He took out a shiny silver knife and pointed at the little girl's chest. "This little thing is too young and can't let out too much blood. Sister May, please choose a position." The seductive woman thought for a moment and said, "What if I want to taste this little girl's heart and liver?" The skinny man said with difficulty, "If you do that, she will die. A dead person is the most worthless. Even if you chop her into meat, she will only be worth 100 true dragon coins at most. This was like a butcher in front of a meat stall, treating little girls as livestock. No. The seductive woman frowned. Since Sister May said she wants to have a taste, why are you still talking nonsense? Hurry up and do it. The short fat man at the side urged. The skinny man sighed lightly. He picked up the silver knife and stared at the little girl's chest. Chapter 23:15. On the table, the crying little girl saw the bright blade approaching. She seemed to collapse completely. She sobbed and said, "I miss my mother." This childish sob was like the most sad and desperate sound in the world. The thin man was indifferent. He exerted strength in his wrist, and the silver blade suddenly cut down. Bang! The wall suddenly broke. The thin man's silver blade seemed to be grasped by a big hand. With a turn of the wrist, the thin man's right wrist was cut off. Puff! Blood splashed like a waterfall. The thin man roared in pain, and his eyes suddenly looked towards the broken wall. The short and fat man holding the porcelain bowl and the charming black-veiled woman were also stunned. They didn't expect that an accident would happen at this critical moment. Lin Sun's figure came in from the broken wall. His black eyes were deep and cold. On the ground, the trembling and frightened young girls all raised their heads in bewilderment like frightened lambs. Lin Sun went straight to the wooden table. The little girl tied on the table was pale with tears streaming down her face. She sobbed and screamed, "I miss my mother. I don't want to die." Even with Lin Sun's current state of mind, his nose was sour and an uncontrollable anger surged in his heart. Killing people was just a matter of life. However, these two men and one woman viewed these young human beings as slaves, as prey, as food. Their bloody and cruel means were worse than beasts. The atmosphere in the room was oppressive. Although Lin Sun had restrained his power, the breath he exuded still made it difficult for the two men and one woman to breathe. They were all shocked and angry. Fellow practitioner of the Cloud Spirit clan, what do you want to do? Do you want to share the profits? The seductive woman glanced at Lin Sun and said in a charming tone. Lin Sun ignored her. He raised his hand to untie the little girl, picked her up, and put her gently on the ground. He rubbed her little head and said softly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." His voice carried the power of the Great Way, which made the little girl calm down in an instant. The despair, fear in her heart were completely swept away like the darkness torn by the sun. The little girl timidly said, "Uncle, do you want to buy me as a slave? I can plant flowers and wash clothes. When I grow up, I will definitely be a good slave." The childish voice was full of hope, but it was like a soldering iron, burning Lin Sun's heart. What kind of trampling and suppression did the human clan of the true dragon world suffer to make these children develop the consciousness of being slaves from a young age? Seeing that Lin Sun saved the little girl, the seductive woman's face changed. She seemed to realize that something was wrong and said coldly, "These human slaves were purchased by my Greenback clan at a great price. Friend, could it be that you intend to rob them?" Robbery. Lin Sun's eyes grew colder. He suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the seductive woman's neck. "What qualifications do you have for me to rob you?" Crack. The seductive woman's snow-white neck let out sounds of bones cracking. Her face became purplish as she shrieked. "This is the treasured ship of the Taowu Imperial clan. As long as I shout, the experts on the ship will be alerted." Whoosh! The thin man's figure rushed out of the room with incomparably fast speed. He had realized that something was wrong and wanted to ask for reinforcements. However, as soon as he moved, he was pressed to the ground with a bang. His body felt as if it was pressed by a mountain. Blood flowed out of his 7 apertures, and his face was hideous. The short and fat man intended to help, but he was immediately intimidated by this scene. With an unsightly expression, he said, "Friend, it's just some human slaves. If you really want them, I can give them to you." From the beginning to the end, they didn't know why this man emitting the aura of the Cloud Spirit clan was so angry and why he attacked. This wasn't stupidity. It was just that in their subconsciousness, humans were born to be slaves and could be slaughtered at will. This was a deep-rooted concept. Lin Sun couldn't tell if it was hatred or anger. It was stifled in his chest, and he couldn't vent it. Bang! The short and fat man was also suppressed. He knelt on the ground. His facial features were twisted, and his body showed signs of cracking. He roared hoarsely. "What do you want to do?" Lin Sun went silent for a moment before he took a deep breath and said calmly, "I'm a human as well. Understand?" It was merely a single sentence, yet it caused the pupils of the two men and woman to dilate, and then they were extremely furious. When did a human bastard dare to attack us? Isn't he afraid of being slaughtered? As he gazed at the astonishment and anger in their eyes, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile. But his smile was indescribably icy cold. He gazed at the young women who were at loss. He gazed at their panicked, helpless, and trembling expressions, and he gazed at the numerous injuries on their bodies. In the true dragon world, humans deserved to be slaves for eternity? The face of the seductive woman whose neck was choked by Lin Sun was livid, and she spoke with resentment. "Let's go, and we'll take it as nothing happened today. Otherwise, even if we die, it'll be impossible for all of you to leave this treasured vessel alive." Crack! Her neck was twisted off, her soul shattered, and her body was incinerated inch by inch before transforming into ashes that rustled and drifted down. The thin man and the short and fat man were terrified, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. They had never seen such a bold human since they started their cultivation. Lin Sun waved his sleeves, and the two strong men of the bloodthirsty green bats clan also turned into ashes. Witnessing this scene, the young women of the human clan seemed to wake up from a dream, and a little hope appeared in their desperate and gloomy eyes. "Uncle, are you really a human?" The little girl of 8 or 9 years old who was rescued by Lin Sun couldn't help asking. "Yes." Lin Sun nodded. The little girl asked doubtfully, "But why are you so powerful instead of becoming a slave?" "My mother said that if we don't obediently become slaves, we'll be killed. If we dare to resist, we'll be exterminated." Obviously, she didn't understand why anyone in this world dared to kill those superior creatures. Lin Sun looked at the other girls and found that they didn't jump, cheer, or get excited after being rescued. What they had was the same doubt. They didn't understand why Lin Sun dared to kill those bloodthirsty Greenbats clan. This was not numbness or resignation, but the idea of being enslaved had long been rooted in their hearts. This was no doubt very horrifying and terrifying. It was simply unimaginable on the starry sky, ancient path. "Uncle will take you away, okay?" Lin Sun took a deep breath and said softly. No one objected, and they were all very obedient. Perhaps they subconsciously thought that they might be rescued this time, but they couldn't get rid of the fate of becoming slaves, goods, and food in the future. Lin Sun suppressed the discomfort in his heart and took all the little girls into the Tower of Endless. Then he sent a voice transmission to Big Yellow, asking it to take good care of these girls. She and Big Yellow were angry after learning what happened to these girls. Even Xie Ji, who had never cared about worldly affairs, showed a rare, murderous look. Lin Sun sat alone in the room. Squeak! Not long after, the door was pushed open, and a skinny middle-aged man walked in. When he saw Lin Sun, he couldn't help but be stunned. "They're all dead, but it's not enough." Lin Sun looked at him. His deep eyes were like a great abyss that could swallow souls, which shocked the skinny middle-aged man at once. After a while, the skinny middle-aged man turned into ashes and dissipated. From his memory, Lin Sun had obtained some things that he wanted to know. He pushed the door open and went out. Outside the room was a long and narrow corridor. It was dozens of feet wide, and both sides of the corridor were full of rooms. Lin Sun walked on the corridor with his hands behind his back. He met many creatures along the way, but none of them could detect his existence. The second level of the Emperor Realm, formless like Tao. When Lin Sun returned to his room, a total of 15 bloodthirsty green bats in the 19 rooms on the lowest floor of the treasure ship, regardless of their cultivation, had disappeared from the world. Lin Sun saved another batch of humans. There were ignorant children, strong young men, and young women in their prime. There were hundreds of them. Some of these people were bought by the bloodthirsty green bats from different territories of the true dragon world, and some were directly plundered. They were all carefully selected. They were all young and children, and there were no old, disabled, sick, or weak people. If Lin Sun hadn't appeared, these people would have been sent to the Green Rainbow Island, where there was a special market for selling slaves. These people would be turned into goods for the various races to choose from. The true dragon world is really disgusting. Until he returned to his room, Lin Sun was still a little depressed when he thought of what had happened before. Naturally, he thought of the culprit who caused all this. Minluo, Dragon Emperor. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. On the road of cultivation, killing and bloodshed could be seen everywhere. However, if it was just a real fight and struggle, it would be fine. What Lin Sun couldn't bear was that the human tribe was trampled, humiliated, and slaughtered as lowly slaves. After all, he was also a human tribe. In the 9-region battlefield, the cultivators of the ancient Desolation realm were regarded as two-legged sheep, but it was not a race war, but a confrontation between camps. Yet now, in the true dragon world, the human race was being ridden around by the myriad of races, and they were acting tyrannically. They were like livestock that seized and trampled on without restraint. As a human tribe, how could Lin Sun accept it? He was very clear that with his current strength, it was destined to be extremely difficult to reverse all this. But as long as he encountered it, he would never ignore it. According to the memory of that guy, there should be another expert of the bloodthirsty greenbats. Lin Sun frowned. This treasure ship was extremely huge, like a small city. It was divided into 3 floors, and there was even a bustling street in the middle floor with shops, restaurants, casinos, discussion arenas, and everything that one should expect. Lin Sun suspected that the fish that escaped the net was very likely to go to the middle floor of the treasure ship. At the same time, in a restaurant on the 2nd floor of the treasure ship, a crafty-looking man who was drinking suddenly trembled all over, and his face changed greatly. This was the bone plate of his son's life soul, which he had always carried with him. But now it suddenly broke. He suddenly got up and hurried downstairs. However, just when he was halfway down, he realized something and stopped where he was with a gloomy look on his face. Chapter 23:16. On the top floor of the treasured ship, there was a magnificent palace. This was the territory of the Taowu Imperial clan. You said your son was killed on the ship of the Taowu Imperial clan? A man wearing a bright yellow robe and a feathered crown was lazily sitting on a throne. Golden cross-shaped symbols appeared in his pupils. It was an incomparably terrifying sight. He was Zheng, a pure-blooded descendant of the Taowu Imperial clan. He was a peerless character that was only a step away from the Emperor realm. In the palace, the man from the bloodthirsty Greenback clan knelt on the ground with a mournful expression. Young master, there's no mistake. Look, this is my son's bone plate. He took out the broken life soul bone plate, and Zheng frowned. With a bang, he shattered the teacup in his hand. With a gloomy expression, he said coldly, I'm curious. Which bastard dares to commit murder on the ship? Next to him, a gray-clothed old man said in a low voice, Young master, just now, a steward in charge of the treasured ship's teleportation sent a message. He said that the 9th room at the bottom of the treasured ship had a crack in the restrictive power covering it. After a short pause, the old man continued, A bloodthirsty Greenback clan's expert lives next to the 9th room. And Zheng's gaze was cold. Investigate this matter. If someone really committed murder, skin him alive and throw him into the sea. The gray-clothed old man nodded and left hurriedly with a dozen Taowu experts. Thank you, young master. Thank you. The man from the bloodthirsty Greenback clan showed gratitude. And Zheng said indifferently, I'm not helping you. I'm just maintaining the rules of the Taowu clan. In the 9th room at the bottom of the treasured ship, after the gray-clothed old man arrived with a group of experts, he thought for a moment and asked, Who lives here? People from the Cloud Spirit clan. An expert answered quickly. Oh, the gray-clothed old man said, Knock on the door. Immediately, an expert stepped forward and raised his hand to knock on the door. However, the tightly closed door opened without a sound. In the room, Lin Sun was sitting in front of a table and drinking wine. He asked without raising his head, "What's the matter?" The gray-clothed old man swept his gaze around and noticed the hole on the wall. He immediately frowned and said, "You did that?" Lin Sun threw out a storage bag. "I know the rules. There are 3,000 true dragon coins inside. That's enough to compensate you." The gray-clothed old man said expressionlessly, "Did you commit murder?" Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and realized that the matter had been leaked. He didn't hide it and said yes. The gray-clothed old man and others were all stunned. They didn't expect Lin Sun to be so frank. "Do you have anything else to say?" The gray-clothed old man stared at Lin Sun with a gloomy look. "If not, just surrender." "I don't think I broke the order on the ship," Lin Sun said casually. Lin said Island. "I didn't go." Lin Mountain, of Taowu of Sea. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't know the way, he wouldn't have spent so much money to travel by boat. "But you killed the experts of the bloodthirsty Green Spirit Clan," the gray-clothed old man said coldly. "The rule of the treasure ship is that you can't kill without permission." Lin Sun asked, "Why didn't you show up when those guys wanted to kill a human girl?" "Human clan?" The gray-clothed old man sneered. "Human clan is like livestock. Anyone can slaughter them at will. Even if I knew, I wouldn't care." Lin Sun's eyes were cold. "So you don't have to follow the rules of the Taowu clan?" The gray-clothed old man couldn't help frowning. "Nonsense. How can human clan be qualified to follow the rules of our Taowu clan?" Lin Sun said, "Then I might as well tell you. You don't deserve to follow the rules of this ship, and you'd better disappear now." After that, the door closed silently, leaving the gray-clothed old man and his companions outside. Seeing this, the faces of these strong Taowu clan darkened. They all looked at the gray-clothed old man. The gray-clothed old man snorted coldly. "What are you waiting for? Do it." A burly-by man tried to kick the door, but before he could do so, his right leg broke with a cracking sound. He staggered and knelt on the ground, letting out a muffled cry of pain. The gray-clothed old man's eyelids twitched. He didn't notice how Lin Sun did it. "How dare you? How dare you be so arrogant on our ship? You're courting death." The other strong Taowu clan were furious. Some of them rushed up again, trying to break the door and kill their way in. But with a bang, 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 with a muffled sound, these strong Taowu clan were all pressed to the ground, lying in disorder and wailing. This made the gray-clothed old man gasp and realize that he had met a tough opponent. "Friend, do you know the consequences of doing this?" He gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice, "Those who offend our Taowu clan never end well." The door opened quietly. Lin Sun stood there with deep black eyes, neither sad nor happy. "Do you know the consequences of offending me?" The gray-clothed old man laughed angrily. "Fine, just you wait." With that, he flicked his sleeves and was about to leave. But just as he took a step forward, a large hand grabbed his neck from behind and lifted him up like a chicken. "What are you trying to do?" The gray-clothed old man was shocked. He was a peak quasi-emperor, but he didn't even have time to react. He was stunned. "I'm going to see the true master of this ship." As Lin Sun spoke, he carried the gray-clothed old man and walked into the distance. In a long passageway, countless living beings in the densely packed rooms were alarmed. They stuck their heads out to see what was going on. When they saw this, they couldn't help but turn pale with fright. This guy from the Cloud Spirit clan was too cruel. He actually dared to attack an expert of the Taowu clan. In the True Dragon realm, apart from the True Dragon clan, the 9 great imperial clans attached to the True Dragon clan were also terrifying existences that no one dared to offend. And the Taowu clan was one of the 9 great imperial clans. Ignoring the various gazes, Lin Sun carried the gray-clothed old man and walked straight to the first floor of the treasured ship. Along the way, he attracted countless surprised gazes. In the distance, a magnificent palace came into view. Many guards were stationed in front of the palace. All of them were armed with weapons and gave off ferocious auras. But Lin Sun didn't stop. He continued walking towards the palace. Behind him, there were countless living beings from various clans watching. Clearly, Lin Sun's actions had caused a commotion on the ship. "Stop! You dare to attack Steward Fu? The guard stationed outside the palace also noticed Lin Sun walking over. When they saw the gray-clothed old man being carried by Lin Sun, they almost didn't dare to believe their eyes. Rumble. But before they could do anything, as Lin Sun walked over, a formless and terrifying oppressive force spread out. It immediately suppressed them to the ground. Not a single one of them could stand. So powerful. When did the Cloud Spirit clan have such a ruthless person? A wave of exclamations resounded in the distance. The experts who followed Lin Sun were all extremely shocked. The guards on the treasured ship were all above the Saint realm. Some of the more powerful ones were even Saint Kings. In the eyes of the experts from various clans, they could be said to be extremely terrifying existences. But in Lin Sun's eyes, they were simply not worth a mention. In the palace, and Zheng, who was sitting on the throne and drinking tea while waiting for news, frowned. He noticed the unusual movement outside the palace immediately. He suddenly raised his head and looked over. He saw Lin Sun, who carried the gray-clothed old man into the palace. In an instant, he realized something was wrong. He stood up and said with a gloomy face, "My friend, what are you trying to do?" Bang! Lin Sun threw the gray-clothed old man out like he was throwing trash. Then, he swept his gaze around and saw the man from the bloodthirsty Greenback clan. The latter had a confused look on his face. It seemed that he still didn't know what had happened. "So the fish that escaped the net is here," said Lin Sun as he flicked his finger. The body of the bloodthirsty Greenbat race male that was still completely bewildered suddenly died, and he transformed into ashes that scattered all over the ground. He died without knowing why or how he died. Lin Sun then looked at Zheng and said, "Are you the owner of this ship?" In the face of Lin Sun's deep black eyes, Zheng, who had always been proud and conceited, was frightened. He had goosebumps all over his body, as if he was being stared at by the god of death. He took a deep breath and said, "This ship belongs to my Taowu clan. I'm in charge of this voyage. My friend, you should know what the name Taowu clan means." Lin Sun said indifferently, "Those bastards from the bloodthirsty Green Spirit clan were all killed by me. Do you still want to do things according to the rules?" The atmosphere was oppressive, and Zheng felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation in his heart. His expression was gloomy. Since he was a child, he had never been threatened like this. But he was even more clear that the person who dared to act like this despite knowing that this was the treasure ship of the Taowu clan was definitely not a good person. He took a deep breath, glanced outside the palace, and shouted, "Ask those onlookers to get lost." His voice was like a thunderclap. Outside the palace, there was a sudden commotion. Those who intended to watch the fun, in the face of the furious Zheng, all retreated and soon disappeared. Zheng tidied up his clothes and said with a forced smile, "Senior, let's talk it over. If I offended you before, I'm here to apologize to you." As he said, he bowed deeply. Even though Lin Sun looked very young, Zheng was not sure whether this guy was an old monster who had lived for countless years, so he called him Senior. Lin Sun stared at Zheng for a moment and said, "Do you know Shui?" Zheng was stunned, and then he straightened up and said, "That's my elder sister, Shui. She was the strongest person in the young generation of the Taowu clan, a proud girl in the 9 imperial clans, and one of the few peerless quasi-emperors in the true dragon world. In the Taowu clan, Shui's status was extremely high, far beyond his younger brother." Lin Sun asked, "Do you know where the dragon palace of the true dragon clan is?" Chapter 23:17. The Bai, an imperial clan, was a vassal of the true dragon and one of the 9 imperial clans, but they couldn't go to the dragon palace without an invitation. From this, it could be seen how lofty the status of the true dragon clan was in this world, just like a god. "Isn't Shui on the Green Rainbow Island?" asked Lin's son. Zheng nodded. "She has been sitting on the Green Rainbow Island in the past 10 years. She said that she wanted to collect enough divine materials to ask the elders of the Xianyan clan to refine a furnace of divine medicine for her." Lin Sun said, "When we arrive at the Green Rainbow Island, take me to see her, and I'll let bygones be bygones." After that, he sat down in front of the table and said, "I'll stay here before we arrive." You don't mind, do you? And Zheng felt bitter in his heart. How could he dare to mind? He agreed without hesitation. After thinking for a while, and Zheng ordered outside the hall, "Come on, bring me the divine wine and delicacies I've collected. I want to entertain this distinguished guest well." Soon, a variety of spiritual fruits and snacks were presented one by one. There was also the monkey wine brewed by the spirit monkey clan, which had been sealed for 10,000 years. It was known as the divine wine and was extremely precious. In addition, there was also the purple flower nectar refined by the purple wing bee clan, the 1,000 cloud dew collected by the flying dream clan, the 10,000 green jade liquid refined by the green spirit clan from tens of thousands of spiritual woods. There were dozens of them, each of which was a rare treasure unique to each clan. At this moment, they were all taken by Zheng to entertain Lin Sun. This surprised Lin Sun. "I made you lose face on this ship. Don't you hate me?" And Zheng answered honestly, "I hate you, but I'm not qualified to take revenge. I can only admit defeat." With that, he smiled bitterly. "Senior, don't worry. I'm treating you so warmly because I want to entertain you well. I don't want to cause any more trouble." Lin Sun nodded and poured a cup of monkey wine. A strong and refreshing aroma of wine immediately spread out. The amber-like wine was surging with wisps of light, which was extremely magical. He drained the wine in one gulp and quietly savored it. Then he nodded and said, "Good wine." This monkey wine wasn't something an ordinary wine could compare to. Not only did it taste sweet and moist, it also contained a unique, rich spirit energy within it, causing its taste to be incomparably wonderful. And Zheng thought to himself, "Of course it's been a long time. Even a small cup is priceless. Normally, I wouldn't even be willing to take it out to drink." Lin Sun tasted the purple flower nectar again. Feeling the soft and fragrant nectar melting in his mouth, Lin Sun couldn't help nodding his head. "Delicious. She is Ji, and she would definitely like this." Then, Lin Sun tasted other delicacies and liquors, all of which had unique flavors and were excellent delicacies, which made Lin Sun secretly praise them. "Come, let me offer a toast to Senior." And Zheng poured himself a cup of monkey wine and said respectfully. Lin Sun glanced at him, raised his cup from a distance, and drained it. And Zheng breathed a sigh of relief and drank up the wine in his cup. He was absolutely sure that Lin Sun did not intend to make things worse. That was enough. And Zheng said, "Senior, we have to pass through 19 spatial boundaries on our way to the Emerald Rainbow Island. It is estimated that we will arrive in 7 days. During this period, if you have any requests, feel free to let me know. As long as I can satisfy it, I will definitely not neglect it." Lin Sun nodded his head. The so-called spatial boundaries were actually folded spaces distributed on the East Sea, like large and small spatial tunnels. The East Sea was incomparably vast, and there were spatial boundaries everywhere. If one wandered around carelessly, it was very likely that one would be lost in the vast East Sea. Even Emperor Realm experts did not dare to wander around carelessly. Those spatial boundaries were like transmission formations. If one didn't know the way, once he entered rashly, it was very likely that he would be teleported to an unknown place and would never be able to return. It wasn't like something like this hadn't happened before. A few days passed quickly, and the journey was peaceful. The death of the bloodthirsty Greenback clan had long been suppressed by the Bayan Imperial clan, and no one dared to talk about it anymore. But everyone knew that this time, the Bayan Imperial clan had encountered a ruthless person. Many experts even guessed that the Bayan Imperial clan would definitely not swallow the insult and humiliation silently, and when they arrived at the Emerald Rainbow Island, it would perhaps be the time for them to take revenge. However, Lin Sun seemed to be completely unaware of all this, and Zheng had never revealed the slightest trace of displeasure or hostility. On this day, Lin Sun arrived outside the hall and leaned on the railing as he gazed into the distance, and he saw the boundless blue sea in the distance. The waves rose and fell, and the sea and sky formed a line, and it was a rather magnificent sight. The treasured ship flew on the surface of the sea, and waves rose into the sky. But strangely, on this vast and calm surface of the sea, there wasn't a single living being in the sea. Moreover, there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of vitality in the sea. Lin Sun probed with his divine sense, and he noticed that the deeper he went, the darker and colder it became. Not to mention living beings like fish and shrimps, even seaweed and corals couldn't be seen in the sea. When his divine sense probed 27 kilometers into the sea, a strange, icy cold current silently suffused the air, and it caused Lin Sun to suddenly have a feeling of extreme danger. Without hesitation, he withdrew his divine sense. At the moment when he withdrew his divine sense, he seemed to see a pair of eyes quietly open in the depths of the boundless sea. Sure enough, under the East Sea is a forbidden zone for life, full of great horror. Lin Sun narrowed his black eyes slightly. When he was on the ship, he had learned that this vast and boundless East Sea had another name, Sea of Sin. The area below 27 kilometers in the Sea of Sin was a forbidden zone for life, without any vitality, just like a place of death and extinction. Since ancient times, all living beings who dived into the area below 27 kilometers in the sea, no matter how strong or weak they were, would be annihilated and could no longer come out alive. There were some extraordinary Emperor Realm seniors that tried all sorts of methods to investigate, but in the end, none of them were able to find out exactly what sort of strange thing was hidden beneath the surface of the water. Even in history, many Emperor Realm experts have been killed in the forbidden zone for life. Lin Sun was skeptical before, but after the investigation just now, he couldn't help but feel awestruck and realize the horror of the forbidden zone for life. Boom! Not far away, there was a wave of power. And Zheng, who had the cultivation of the quasi-emperor realm, was practicing a secret method. His body was steaming with blood and qi, and a Taoist seal was condensed in front of him. The Taoist seal was full of strong and bright Great Way laws, and then it evolved into the shadow of a Bayan. As Zheng operated his cultivation, the Taoist seal of the Bayan also radiated all kinds of incredible power, which was extremely amazing. Lin Sun recognized at a glance that what Zheng displayed was exactly the same as the Bayan seal, one of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon that he had mastered. This made Lin Sun more certain that the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon, obtained by Master Lu, absolutely had an origin beyond his imagination. Bayan? Bayan? Yue and I. Bayan? Bayan? Yin Long 3. The 9 kinds of changes of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon happen to correspond to the 9 Emperor clans of the True Dragon. How could this be a coincidence? However, after staring at Zheng, who was practicing for a moment, Lin Sun suddenly felt that something was wrong. The power of Zheng's Bayan seal was indeed terrifying. It was also the true inheritance of the Bayan seal. It was very mature and had extraordinary attainments. But the only thing it lacked was a unique charm or a kind of spirituality. It felt like a Bayan, although it had monstrous power, it was tied up by a heavy shackle. At first, Lin Sun thought that Zheng's cultivation of the Bayan seal lacked some real tempering. But after careful observation for a long time, Lin Sun finally dared to conclude that the Bayan seal displayed by Zheng was obviously castrated. It only had the power to suppress mountains and rivers, but it lacked the most core spirituality. This was not the problem of cultivation, but the problem of the inheritance Zheng had obtained. Lin Sun couldn't believe it. Zheng was a pure-blood descendant of the Bayan Emperor clan, and the Bayan seal must be the supreme inheritance of his clan. How could there be such a big defect? Senior, did my cultivation disturb you? In the distance, Zheng looked at Lin Sun. Just now, he felt uncomfortable under Lin Sun's gaze. Lin Sun shook his head and said, I just feel that there seems to be some problem with the cultivation you're practicing. And Zheng was stunned. Obviously, he didn't understand Lin Sun's words. He cupped his fists and said, Junior's cultivation is shallow. I made a fool of myself. This is not a problem of cultivation, but a problem of the inheritance. Seeing that Zheng had been taking good care of him these days, Lin Sun gave him some advice. If you continue to cultivate like this, I'm afraid that you can only stop at the quasi-emperor realm on the road of the Great Tao. Then, he turned around and walked into the main hall. This time, He killed the experts of the bloodthirsty Greenback clan on the ship, which made Zheng and the other experts of the Bayan Emperor clan lose face. When they arrived at the Green Rainbow Island, they might suffer the revenge of the Bayan Emperor clan. Because of this, he held back and didn't explain to Zheng at this time. After all, he didn't know whether Zheng was a friend or an emperor. Seeing Lin Sun enter the main hall, Zheng's expression flickered. That guy actually dared to say that there was a problem with his inheritance? That was simply denying the great Tao that he had pursued his entire life. One must know that the Bayan seal was the most supreme inheritance of the Bayan Emperor clan. If there was a problem with it, wouldn't it mean that there was a problem with the inheritance that their entire clan cultivated? That was clearly impossible. If there was a defect in the inheritance, how could their Bayan Emperor clan have existed since ancient times and become one of the 9 great emperor clans? Besides, their Bayan Emperor clan did not lack old monsters in the Bayan Emperor realm. If there was a defect in the inheritance, how could those old monsters become emperors? After pondering for a long time, Zheng took a deep breath and thought to himself, "You're just an expert of the Cloud Spirit clan. No matter how powerful you are, how could you possibly know the secret of our Bayan Emperor clan's inheritance?" Clearly, he didn't believe Lin Sun at all. Chapter 23:18. Senior, may I be so bold as to ask, have you already become a martial emperor? Zheng walked into the hall. After hesitating for a long time, he couldn't help asking the question that had been hidden in his heart for many days. Lin Sun nodded, and Zheng looked as if he had been freed. He revealed a relaxed expression and said, "If that's the case, then I can explain to the clan." "Explain what?" Lin Sun was surprised, and Zheng said respectfully, "In the dragon world, there's an unwritten rule that an emperor should not be humiliated. If the clan knew that I was defeated by you this time, they wouldn't make such a big fuss about it. As for those dead, bloodthirsty greenbacks," and Zheng didn't even bother to mention them. Offending an emperor? They deserve to die. Speaking of it, and Zheng even felt slight hatred for those bloodthirsty Greenback clan's experts. If it wasn't for them provoking such an emperor-level existence, how could their Mengmeng imperial clan possibly have been implicated? Of course, it didn't mean that the Bayan imperial clan was afraid of an emperor. And Zheng knew very well how powerful an emperor was. Even if he went back to ask for help this time, with his status in the clan, he wouldn't be able to get help. Instead, he would be reprimanded and punished because he had offended an emperor. I've long heard that the Bayan imperial clan can distinguish right from wrong and abide by the rules. Your performance didn't let me down, Lin Sun said. And Zheng said, rules are relative after all. An emperor like you can already override the rules. After a pause, he smiled and said, however, it's precisely because of the rules that the Bayan imperial clan can make the Green Rainbow Island a place of trade. After all, fairness and rules are the most important in trade. Otherwise, everything will be in chaos. Lin Sun said, when I see in Shui, we'll be even. And Zheng cupped his hands. Thank you, senior. No matter how proud and conceited Zheng was, he couldn't raise his head in front of a great emperor. At the same time, he felt lucky that he didn't neglect the other these days. Otherwise, the consequences would be much more serious. 7 days later, the treasure ship arrived at the Green Rainbow Island smoothly. It was said to be an island, yet it was actually like a piece of land that covered an area of a few tens of thousands of kilometers. It was covered in all sorts of verdant ancient trees, and there were strands of auspicious light that transformed into divine rainbows that revolved in the sky above the island, causing it to be a gorgeous and resplendent sight. There was a dense expanse of treasured vessels entering and exiting the island a long time ago, and the figures of the various races moved up and down the island, causing it to seem extremely prosperous and bustling. When the treasure ship of the Bayan imperial clan arrived, and Zheng took the initiative to get up and went to the island with Lin. On the way, he introduced the situation of the Green Rainbow Island to Lin Sun. On the Jade Rainbow, Celestial Island, there would be beings from all over the world coming here every day. Some came to buy treasures, some came to sell treasures. On the other hand, The Jade Rainbow, I was like an extremely enormous marketplace that gathered the special products of the myriad of clans in the world. No matter if it was divine materials, medicinal pills, spirit materials, precious treasures, cultivation techniques, inheritances, and various other treasures, it could be said to have everything one could wish for. It could be said that all the buyers that came to Jade Rainbow, I would be able to return from a fruitful journey, and all the sellers would be able to obtain extremely satisfying gains. Here, there were all kinds of rare goods and treasures in the world. As long as you had enough true dragon coins, there was nothing you couldn't buy. If there was, it meant that you didn't have enough true dragon coins. Along the way, Lin Sun saw that the streets of the island were like a net, the houses were like a forest, and there were all kinds of stalls everywhere. The stalls were full of all kinds of strange treasures. Shouts and cries sounded one after another. Creatures from all over the world shuttled back and forth. The scene could be described as people rubbing shoulders and sweating like rain. The world is bustling for profit. The world is bustling for profit. It's rare that this place is in good order and prosperous. It's really good. Lin Sun couldn't help sighing with emotion. And Zheng immediately laughed. He said proudly, "Senior, this is the way our Taowu Imperial clan conducts ourselves." My clan's primogenitor once left behind a sentence. The Taowu Imperial clan should act according to the rules. It could be said that the word rules is the guiding principle of our clan. Lin Sun asked, "But why doesn't this rule apply to the human clan?" And Zheng was dumbfounded. He didn't know what Lin Sun's attitude was. After thinking for a while, he said, "The reason why humans are so lowly is that we are too weak. The weak are destined to follow the rules." Lin Sun didn't argue with him. He said, "In my opinion, sooner or later, everything will change." And Zheng nodded. Obviously, he didn't agree with Lin Sun at all. Lin Sun didn't want to say anything more. Wanting to change all of this wasn't something that could be resolved with just a few words. On the westernmost side of the island was a rolling green mountain range. It was filled with chaotic chi and auspicious clouds. It was a rare blessed land. This mountain was called Rainbow Reflection. There were many caves and palaces on the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. It was the territory of the Bayan Imperial clan. The residence of my Taowu Imperial clan is located in the Spirit Shell Secret Realm, 9 million kilometers away from the Jade Rainbow Deity Island. On the Jade Rainbow Deity Island, there are 4 martial Emperor Elders of my clan, as well as a rotating Island Master. Arriving in front of the Rainbow Reflection Mountain, and Zheng said, "Every single Island Master needs to be stationed here for 100 years. Firstly, it is to temper one's cultivation in the affairs of the world. Secondly, as the Island Master, one can obtain the most abundant cultivation resources. The Island Lord on duty is in Shui." As he spoke, he came to the mountain gate, took out his nameplate, and smoothly led Lin Sun into the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. Finally, they arrived at an ancient courtyard, and Zheng said, "Senior, this is my residence. Please wait here for a moment. I'll go find Senior's sister in Shui." Lin Sun nodded. Lin Sun nodded and sat on a stone bench in the courtyard. Then, he began to meditate, and Zheng was a little surprised. This was equal to the territory of the Bayan Imperial clan, and there were 4 Emperor Realm Elders on the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. Didn't this senior worry about being betrayed? After thinking about it, and Zheng cupped his hands and left. Emperor Realm Elders could not be humiliated. This was also a rule. At least the Bayan Imperial clan had always believed in rules. Lin Sun didn't even lift his eyelids until Zheng left. Long before he entered Rainbow Echo Mountain, his enormous willpower had already sensed that there were 4 Emperor Realms here. One was at the 6th level of the Emperor Realm, 2 were at the 5th level of the Emperor Realm, and 1 was at the 3rd level of the Emperor Realm. In addition, this place was covered with an Emperor rank killing formation. This kind of power was indeed terrifying enough to deter any thief. But for Lin Sun, it was not a threat at all. Not long after, and Zheng returned with a helpless face and said embarrassedly, "Senior, and Shui is in closed-door cultivation. It will take her at least 10 days to finish." Lin Sun frowned and said, "At least 10 days? Well, I'll wait." He sighed in his heart. Was it so difficult to meet the Dragon Clan? And Zheng said in a low voice, "Senior, it should be the first time you come to the Rainbow Island. How about I accompany you?" Lin Sun thought for a while and nodded in agreement. And Zheng's spirit was lifted. "Senior, the Jade Rainbow, Celestial Island gathers treasures from all over the world. Almost all treasures in this world can be found here. Maybe there is something that Senior needs." As he said, he took Lin Sun out of the courtyard and went out of the snow reflection mountain. "Is there pure and turbid star soul sand?" Lin Sun asked casually, and Zheng was stunned. This kind of divine item can be considered a rare treasure that can only be found by luck. It has appeared a few times in the past, but it was immediately bought by someone at high price. Lin Sun nodded and asked again, "Tai Chu? Pan? Wu Jun?" And Zheng hesitated for a long time and said with a wry smile, "This is a treasure rarer than pure and turbid star soul sand. Whether you can see it or not depends on your luck." Lin Sun smiled and didn't continue to ask. The two came to the bustling streets and alleys and looked around. Lin Sun also picked some treasures, all of which were rare and eccentric things that were hard to come across on the ancient starry path. Their prices were not very high, but they were not cheap either. After a long time, Lin Sun had spent millions of true dragon coins. Most of the things he bought were related to food, including meat, fruits and vegetables, seasonings, and so on. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, and Zheng would have suspected that Lin Sun was a great emperor of cooking. Lin Sun's way of spending money like water shocked Zheng. Millions of true dragon coins were enough to buy a high-grade, profound, grade monarch weapon. But Lin Sun didn't even breathe when he squandered money. Even Zheng was amazed by his extravagant way. He didn't know that the money Lin Sun spent now was from the True Dragon clan. Lu Jie made Jiang Qianchu, Punishment, Penbei Chu, Fat Bao, Wan Xiang, Xianzong, Zhenmu, Paji Zheng Wink. Along the way, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He had been operating the clairvoyant connection, intending to see if he could find something good. Who would have thought that there were no loopholes for him to pick up? It must be known that the Heaven's Eye was the ultimate technique of the eighth successor of Mount Fengtian, Diviner Z. This richest god of fortune of Mount Fengtian had relied on the Heaven's Eye to sweep through all the rare treasures in the starry sky and become rich. Not long after, a noisy discussion caught Lin Sun's attention. "Is it really Tai Chu? Pan? June, how can it be fake?" The Heaven's Reflection Tower has already released news that they have been entrusted by a mysterious person to auction off this treasure, and the auction will be held until midnight tonight. Let's go take a look. Hearing this, Lin Sun was stunned. Tai Chu, Pan, badger meat carrying haze raising Shanxiaotun Barba, cunning and skillful in plotting at this moment. And Zheng also noticed the commotion, and he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. What a fucking coincidence! On the street in the distance, many figures were gathering in the direction of the Heaven's Invisibility Tower. The scene was extremely shocking. Obviously, they were attracted by this auction. "Senior, do you want to go and have a look?" asked Zheng. Lin Sun thought for a moment and looked at Zheng, saying, "How about you go and have a look for me? If this treasure is real, I'll buy it." And Zheng was stunned and pointed at himself. "Me?" Lin Sun nodded. Chapter 23:19. And Zheng almost thought that Lin was deliberately making things difficult for him. Even if he sold himself, he wouldn't be able to afford the price of Tai Chu. Pan? That? But the next moment, and Zheng was full of shame and trembled. Lin took out a storage pouch, which contained more than 30 imperial weapons. Although they were all at the mysterious grade, their value was immeasurable. If these are not enough to buy Tai Chu, Pan, turbulent trade, Su Pao Huan, file shake. As he spoke, Lin Sun handed another one to Zheng. Opening it, Lin Sun found tens of millions of true dragon coins, a small mountain of all kinds of rare treasures, and inestimable divine materials. And Zheng gasped. After a long silence, he finally dared to believe that in order to buy Tai Chu, Pan, he couldn't help asking, "Why don't you go in person?" Lin Sun said, "It's not convenient." Lin Sun said, "It's not convenient." It was really not convenient. In a place like the auction, there must be a lot of people. If he was targeted by someone, it would cause a lot of trouble. Of course, Lin Sun was not afraid of trouble. The reason why he asked Zheng to go was that Zheng was a pure-blood descendant of the Bayan imperial family. No one dared to provoke him on the Green Rainbow Island. In addition, the treasures he gave Zheng were all from a real Bayan imperial family. Zhengwei Dan, vegetable stealthy trick, cinder ash neon bake, locust towering gilded beer. If Zheng handled the stolen goods, he wouldn't have to worry about any problems. Hurry up. When the auction is over, I will find you. Lin Sun patted the shoulder of Zheng, who was still in a daze. If this thing is done, I will let you see what the real Bayan seal looks like. Zheng nodded and took a deep breath. Then I'll go. Until he arrived at the Tianjin Tower, Zheng suddenly remembered what the real Bayan seal was. The meaning of this sentence was too puzzling. It was even ridiculous. After all, the Bayan seal was the inheritance of the Bayan imperial family. Shaking his head, Zheng stopped thinking about it. After showing his identity, he was directly arranged to the highest standard quiet room in the Tianjin Tower. At the same time, Lin Sun wandered alone on the Green Rainbow Island, still spending money like water. Rare treasures that had never been heard of? Buy. Ingredients that had never been seen? Buy. These specialties seemed to be interesting. Buy. Lin Sun was treated warmly wherever he went. He even caused quite a stir because of his extravagance. It wasn't long before practically all the merchants on the Emerald Rainbow Island knew that a rich and imposing tycoon had come today, and he'd vividly demonstrated to the world what it meant to squander money like dirt and what it meant to be capricious when rich. The true dragon coin was refined from a type of pure dark gold Taoist crystal. It was also the currency recognized by all living beings in the true dragon world. But for Lin Sun, this kind of currency was just a number without much value. If he didn't spend it now, he wouldn't be able to spend it when he returned to the starry ancient path. Really? Zheng Wei, why do you call me Ring or Disaster Soul? You traitorous mother twice? Mao, Pingwei? Yu Zhao, Wei Wei, Melon selection now. These treasures were all Lin Sun's trophies. Except for those treasures given to Zheng, Lin Sun still had a lot of them. In short, he was not short of money. It wasn't long before Lin Sun came to a special trading area where slaves were traded. Inside the densely packed cages, there were many creatures shackled. Most of them came from some strange and weak races. The faces of every creature that had been reduced to a slave were full of numbness, as if they were goods being pointed at and judged. Lin Sun glanced around and saw some imprisoned human slaves, all with disheveled hair and ragged clothes. Almost all of them were in their teens, including men and women. Sir, are you going to choose slaves? A man in a silver robe came over with a smile. Lin Sun recognized at a glance that this was a creature of the bloodthirsty Greenback clan. He asked, "How many humans are there in the whole market?" The man in the silver robe said, "How many do you want, sir?" "All of them." The silver robe man's spirits were refreshed, and he said excitedly, "My lord, to tell you the truth, the trade of human slaves on the entire Jade Rainbow Isle has always been controlled by our bloodthirsty Greenback race, and what you see now is only a small portion." After a pause, he said tentatively, "The only thing I'm worried about is whether you can buy all of them." Lin Sun threw out a storage pouch. "You can take this as a deposit." The man in the silver robe's breathing became heavy. There were 1,000,000 true dragon coins in the storage pouch, which was a huge sum of money. "Sir, please wait a moment. I'll prepare the goods for you." The man in the silver robe quickly took out a communication jade slip and began to get busy. Not long after, a black-robed old man came from afar. The man in the silver robe went forward and talked for a while, then took a treasure pouch from the black-robed old man. "Lord, there are 387 human slaves in these cages. Among them, there are 130 children under the age of 10, and the rest are men and women between the age of 10 and 17. Added with the 17 slaves in these cages, there are 404 slaves in total." The man in the silver robe said quickly, "According to the current market price, these slaves are worth a total of 1,350,000 true dragon coins." Sir, you only need to pay another 350,000 true dragon coins, and these slaves are all yours. Lin Sun asked, That's too little. Is there any more? The man in the silver robe was stunned. Too little? The number of humans was small. It was already a big deal to be able to sell more than 400 slaves at once. After thinking for a while, the man in the silver robe looked around vigilantly. Then he gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Sir, we still have a batch of black goods in our hands. If you really need them, we have to change the place to trade. The so-called black goods were goods of dubious origin. Once exposed, it was very likely to cause a lot of trouble. Okay. Lin Sun nodded and agreed. Immediately, the man in the silver robe led Lin Sun away from the bustling downtown. After several turns, they came to the depths of a remote street. They pushed open the closed gate of a courtyard and walked towards the depths. In the process, Lin Sun noticed that the courtyard was covered with the power of prohibition, which could block the investigation of the outside world. Not long after, in a hall in the depths of the courtyard, a woman in a purple robe sat upright, her triangular eyes glowing with evil light. Elder, this lady is a big buyer. The man in the silver robe came forward and explained in a low voice. After listening, the woman in the purple robe looked at Lin Sun up and down and said, My friend, black goods are very troublesome. Maybe it will lead to a fatal disaster. Don't you worry about it. Lin Sun said indifferently, Since I'm here, do you think I will worry about this? The woman in the purple robe took a deep look at Lin Sun. Without saying anything more, she waved her sleeve. With a burst of sounds, dozens of human men and women fell to the ground. Each of them was tied up and their hair was disheveled. These are all human practitioners. The weakest one has the cultivation of Tao Insight Realm, and the strongest one has the foundation of Peerless Saint King Realm. The woman in the purple robe said leisurely, The value of these slaves is far greater than those little things who don't know how to cultivate. As she said, she got up and came to a human woman. She lifted the latter's chin and said to Lin Sun, My friend, look, this girl is a peerless Saint King. She is also extremely beautiful. The rarest thing is that she is still a virgin. The human woman's hair was disheveled. Her whole body was wrapped in chains branded with Taoist patterns. Her snow-white skin was full of dense whip marks. When her head was lifted, an extremely beautiful face like a flower and jade was suddenly revealed. But her face was pale and transparent, and her eyes were empty and dull as if she had no soul. When Lin Sun saw this woman, his pupils suddenly shrank, and his heart was stirred. Yin Huan. This woman was Yin Huan, the successor of Shinji Taoist sect, the stunning beauty who was like a companion to Ao Jintian, a pure-blood descendant of True Dragon. At that time, she and Ao Jintian went to the ancient Desolation Realm together and invited Zhao Jingxian to leave with them to the True Dragon world. But now, she was reduced to a slave and fell into the hands of the bloodthirsty Greenback clan. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Lin Sun almost couldn't believe it. And looking at her scarred body and numb and empty look, an unspeakable shock and anger also surged in Lin Sun's heart. Jing Xian left with Yin Huan. Now that Yin Huan was in such a miserable situation, what about Jing Xian? Did something happen to her? The woman in the purple robe didn't notice the change of Lin Sun's mood. Seeing him staring at the human female slave, she couldn't help but laugh. She said, Looks like you are very satisfied with this batch of illegal goods. However, you have to be clear about the price. The woman in my hands is at least 20 million true dragon coins. After all, this is an end-life Saint King. If it wasn't for the fact that she is illegal, not to mention 20 million true dragon coins, there would be people who would buy her for 50 million. Of course, if you think it's too expensive, you can look at other human slaves. For example, Tao Insight Realm, only 800,000, Reincarnation Developing Realm, 2 million, King Realm. As the woman in the purple robe quoted, the man in the silver robe next to her waited expectantly for Lin Sun, the big buyer, to spend money at this moment. Lin Sun suddenly said, I want all of these. Is there more? The woman in the purple robe and the man in the silver robe were stunned. Not enough. It seems that you really don't have more. Lin Sun glanced at them and said, Then I can only send you on your way. The man in the silver robe's face suddenly changed, and he said, What do you mean? As soon as his voice fell, he was killed on the spot by an invisible force. His body directly turned into ashes and disappeared. Whoosh! The woman in the purple robe reacted very quickly and moved out of the hall without hesitation. But in an instant, she was grabbed by the neck by Lin Sun, as if he was holding a chicken.